she did not. He wished no one did. He hoped she had not told anyone. Contact. He felt them. Felt other minds. Felt his brothers, the wolves. Their thoughts came to him as a whirlpool blend of images and emotions. At first he had not been able to make out anything except the raw emotion, but now his mind put words to them. Wolf brother. Surprise. Two legs that talks. A faded image, dim with time, old beyond old, of men running with wolves, two packs hunting together. We have heard this comes again. You are long-toothed. It was a faint picture of a man dressed in clothes made of hides, with a long knife in his hand, but overlaid on the image, more central, was a shaggy wolf with one tooth longer than the rest. A steel tooth gleaming in the sunlight, as the wolf led the pack in a desperate charge through deep snow toward the deer that would mean life instead of slow death by starvation, and the deer thrashing to run in powder to their bellies, and the sun glinting on the white until it hurt the eyes, and the wind howling down the passes, swirling the fine snow like mist, and wolves' names were always complex images. Perrin recognized the man, Elias Machira, who had first introduced him to wolves. Sometimes he wished he had never met Elias.
Hey, Fire, how you doing?
No, he thought.
Hell
He tried
yeah.
to picture himself in his mind. Yes.
I gotta roll one up. I got one rolled.
It was not the image he had made. A young man with heavy shoulders and shaggy brown curls. A young man with an axe at his belt, who others thought moved and thought slowly. That man was there, somewhere in the mind picture that came from the wolves. But stronger by far was a massive wild bull with curved horns of shining metal, running through the night with the speed and exuberance of youth, curly-haired coat gleaming in the moonlight, flinging himself in among white cloaks on their horses, with the air crisp and cold and dark, and blood so red on the horns, and young bull. For a moment, Perrin lost the contact in his shock. He had not dreamed they had given him a name.
I didn't know if I was going to be able to do my lives or my book lives because my backup phone that I had, it had a cracked screen. It had a cracked screen for a couple of years now.
Pushing all that aside,
all I used it for was
he had no wish to remember any of it. He
my
gave the wolves the smell
audio
of
books
brand, of oil and urine, and asked if they had scented the three. It was one of the things that had come to him with the change in his eyes.
If the screen fighting went out,
by their smell,
so I'm not able to use it right now.
He could see more sharply too.
So I wasn't sure I was able to do it. So
he was always careful to light lamps or candles now.
Another temporary device until I can find a permanent one.
From the wolves came a view of men on horses approaching the hollow in late day. That was the last they had seen or smelled of Rand or the other two.
Right now I'm using my tablet.
The next step would be useless unless he told Ingtar.
My backup one is, well,
Burn you, Rand.
It was tape.
The one time he had gone to the dungeon with Egwene,
that's not a
faint and made his hair stand
that's
on
just
end.
where tapes came up. That's
not even
still good, but
smelled so foul. He had wanted to rip through the bars of the cell and tear the man apart.
But the screen finally stopped working on me.
It frightened him more than Fane did.
If I had money, I'd be able to get the screen replaced, but
Trollocs before he howled aloud.
I got my tablet.
From the distance came the cries of a wolf.
For now, I guess.
In the hollow, horses stamped and whickered fearfully. Some of the soldiers fingered their long-bladed lances and eyed the rim of the hollow uneasily. Inside Perrin's head, it was much worse. He felt the rage of the wolves, the hate. There were only two things wolves hated. All else they merely endured. But fire and Trollocs they hated, and they would go through fire to kill Trollocs. Even more than the Trollocs, Fane's scent had put them into a frenzy, as if they smelled something that made Trollocs seem natural and right. Where? The sky rolled in his head, the land spun. East and west wolves did not know. They knew the movements of sun and moon, the shift of seasons, the contours of the land. Perrin puzzled it out. South. And something more. An eagerness to kill the Trollocs. The wolves would let young bulls share in the killing. He could bring the two legs with their hard skins if he wanted. But Young Bull and Smoke and Two Deer and Winter Dawn and all the rest of the pack would hunt down the twisted ones who had dared come into their land. The inedible flesh and bitter blood would burn the tongue, but they must be killed. Kill them. Kill the twisted ones.
I'm hoping I do.
Their fury infected him. His lips peeled back in a snarl, and he took a step to join them. Run with them in the hunt.
Because I think to replace the screen, at least
with an effort, the contact,
last time I checked,
the wolves were there.
It was a little bit over $100
to them across the intervening distance.
But that one's a
he felt cold
Samsung Galaxy 9.
I'm a man.
So it's a.
Might help me. I am a man.
It's an older one.
Are you well, parent? Matt said, moving closer. He sounded the way he always did, flippant, and bitter under it too of late. But he looked worried. That is all I need. Rand run off, and then you get sick. I don't know where I'll find a wisdom to look after you out here. I think I have some willow bark in my saddlebags. I can make you some willow bark tea if Ingtar lets us stay that long. Serve you right if I make it too strong. I'm all right, Matt. Shaking off his friend, he went to find Ingtar. The Shinaran Lord was scanning the ground on the rim with Uno and Ragan and Masima. The others frowned at him as he drew Ingtar aside. He made sure Uno and the rest were too far away to hear before he spoke. I don't know where Rand or the others went, Ingtar, but Podden Thane and the Trollocs, and I guess the rest of the Dark Friends, are still heading south. How do you know this? Ingtar said. Perrin drew a deep breath. Wolves told me. He waited, for what he was not sure. Laughter and scorn, an accusation of being a Dark Friend, of being mad. Deliberately, he tucked his thumbs behind his belt, away from the axe. I will not kill. Not again. If he tries to kill me for a Dark Friend, I'll run. But I won't kill anybody else. I have heard of things like this, Ingtar said slowly, after a moment. Rumors. There was a warder, a man called Elias Machira, who some said could talk to wolves. He disappeared years ago. He seemed to catch something in Perrin's eyes. You know him? I know him, Perrin said flatly. He's the one. I don't want to talk about it. I didn't ask for it. That's what Rand said. Light. I wish I were home working Master Luhan's forge. These wolves, Ingtar said. They will track the Dark Friends and Trollocs for us? Perrin nodded. Good. I will have the horn, whatever it takes. The Shinaran glanced around at Uno and the others, still searching for tracks. Better not to tell anyone else, though. Wolves are considered good luck in the borderlands. Trollocs fear them. But still, better to keep this between us for the time. Some of them might not understand. I would as soon nobody else ever found out, Perrin said. I will tell them you think you have Huron's talent. They know about that. They're easy with it. Some of them saw you wrinkling your nose back in that village and at the ferry. I've heard jokes about your delicate nose. Yes. You keep us on the trail today. Uno will see enough of their tracks to confirm it is the trail. And before nightfall, every last man will be sure you are a sniffer. I will have the horn. He glanced at the sky and raised his voice. Daylight is wasting. To horse! To Perrin's surprise, the Shinaran seemed to accept Ingtar's story. A few of them looked skeptical. Masima went so far as to spit. But Uno nodded thoughtfully, and that was enough for most. Matt was the hardest to convince. A sniffer? You? You're going to track murderers by smell? Perrin, you're as crazy as Rand. I am the only sane one left from Emmons Field, with Egwene and Nynaeve trotting off to Tarvalin to become... He cut himself short with an uneasy glance for the Shinarans. Perrin took Huron's place beside Ingtar as the small column rode south. Matt kept up a string of disparaging remarks until Uno found the first tracks left by Trollocs and by men on horses. But Perrin paid him little mind. It was all he could do to keep the wolves from dashing on ahead to kill the Trollocs. The wolves cared only about killing the Twisted Ones. To them, Dark Friends were no different from any other two legs. Perrin could almost see the Dark Friends scattering in a dozen directions, while the wolves slew Trollocs, running away with the Horn of Valir, running away with the dagger. And once the Trollocs were dead, he did not think he could interest the wolves in tracking the humans, even if he had any idea which of them to track. He had a running argument with them, and sweat covered his forehead long before he got the first flash of images that turned his stomach. He drew rein, stopping his horse dead. The others did the same, looking at him, waiting. He stared straight ahead, cursed softly, bitterly. Wolves would kill men, but men were not a preferred prey. Wolves remembered the old hunting together for one thing, and the two legs tasted bad for another. Wolves were more particular about their food than he would have believed. They would not eat carrion unless they were starving, and few would kill more than they could eat. What Perrin felt from the wolves could best be described as disgust. And there were the images. He could see them much more clearly than he wished. Bodies, men and women and children, heaped and tumbled about. Blood-soaked earth churned by hooves and frenzied attempts to escape. Torn flesh, heads severed. Vultures flapping, their white wings stained red. Bloody, featherless heads tearing and gorging. He broke loose before his stomach emptied itself. Above some trees in the far distance, he could just make out black specks whirling low, dropping, then rising again. Vultures fighting over their meal. There's something bad up there. He swallowed, meeting Ingtar's gaze. How could he fit telling them into the story of being a sniffer? I don't want to get close enough to look at that. But they'll want to investigate once they can see the vultures. I have to tell them enough so they'll circle around. The people from that village, I think the Trollocs killed them. Uno began cursing quietly, and some of the other Shienarans muttered to themselves. None of them seemed to take his announcement as odd, though. Lord Ingtar said he was a sniffer, and sniffers could smell killing. And there is someone following us, Ingtar said. Matt turned his horse eagerly. Maybe it's Rand. I knew he wouldn't run out on me. Thin, scattered puffs of dust rose to the north. A horse was running across patches where the grass grew thin. The Shienarans spread out, lances ready, watching in all directions. It was no place to be casual about a stranger. A speck appeared, a horse and rider. A woman to Perrin's eyes, long before anyone else could discern the rider, and quickly drew closer. She slowed to a trot as she came up on them, fanning herself with one hand. A plump, graying woman, with her cloak tied behind her saddle, who blinked at them all vaguely. That's one of the Aes Sedai.
Nice.
Matt said disappointedly.
Can't go wrong with the brisk
I
iced
recognize
tea.
her. Varen. Varen Sedai, Ingtar said sharply, then bowed to her from his saddle. Moraine Sedai sent me, Lord Ingtar, Varen announced with a satisfied smile. She thought you might meet me. Such a gallop I've had. I thought I might not catch you short of Kyrian. You saw that village, of course. Oh, that was very nasty, wasn't it? And that murder. There were ravens and crows all over the rooftops, but never a one went near it, dead as it was. I had to wave away the Dark One's own weight in flies, though, but I could make out what it was. A shame I did not have time to take it down. I've never had a chance to study it. Suddenly her eyes narrowed, and the absent manner vanished like smoke. Where is Randall Thor? Ingtar grimaced. Gone, Varen Sedai. Vanished last night, without a trace. Him, the Ogier, and Huron, one of my men. The Ogier, Lord Ingtar. And your sniffer went with him? What would those two have in common with... Ingtar gaped at her, and she snorted. Did you think you could keep something like that secret? She snorted again. Sniffers. Vanished, you say? Yes, Varen Sedai. Ingtar sounded unsettled. It was never easy discovering Aes Sedai knew the secrets you were trying to keep from them. Perrin hoped Moraine had not told anyone about him. But I have a new sniffer. The Shienarans lord gestured to Perrin. This man seems to have the ability also. I will find the Horn of Valir, as I swore to, have no fear. Your company will be welcome, Aes Sedai, if you wish to ride with us. To Perrin's surprise, he did not sound as if he entirely meant it. Baron glanced at Perrin, and he shifted uneasily. A new sniffer? Just when you lose your old one? How providential. You found no tracks? No, of course not. You said no trace. Odd. Last night.
Got one. Well,
she twisted in her saddle, looking back north, and for a moment, Baron almost thought she was going to ride back the way she had come. Ingtar frowned at her. You think their disappearance has something to do with the horn, I said I.
I got a regular
Baron
one.
settled back. The horn? No. No, I think not. But it is.
Before we smoke the roach, want us to do a couple dab pins.
I can understand them. I can have 2 men escort you back to where they disappeared, Baron, said I. They will have no trouble taking you right to it. No, if you say they vanished without a trace. For a long moment, she studied Ingtar, her face unreadable. I will ride with you. Perhaps we will find them again, or they will find us. Talk to me as we ride, Lord Ingtar. Tell me everything you can about the young man. Everything he did, everything he said. They started off in a jingle of harness and armor, Baron riding close beside Ingtar and questioning him closely, but too low to be overheard. He gave Perrin a look when he tried to maintain his place, and he fell back. It's Rand she's after, Matt murmured, not the horn. Perrin nodded. Wherever you've gotten to, Rand, stay there. It's safer than here. Chapter 15. Kinslayer.
This was
the way the strangely faded distant hills seemed to slide toward
lights.
Rand when he looked straight at them made his head spin, like he wrapped himself in the void. Sometimes the emptiness crept up on him unawares, but he avoided it like death. Better to be dizzy than share the void with that uneasy light. Better by far to stare at the faded land. Still, he tried not to look at anything too far away unless it lay right ahead of him. Huron wore a fixed look as he concentrated on sniffing the trail, as if he were trying to ignore the land the trail crossed. When the sniffer did notice what lay around them, he would give a start and wipe his hands on his coat, then push his nose forward like a hound, eyes glazing, excluding everything else. Loyal rode slumped in his saddle and frowned as he glanced around, ears twitching uneasily, muttering to himself. Again they crossed land blackened and burned, even the soil crunching under the horses' hooves, as if it had been seared. The burned swaths, sometimes a mile wide, sometimes only a few hundred paces, all ran east and west, as straight as an arrow's flight. Twice Rand saw the end of a burn, once as they rode over it, once as they passed nearby. They tapered to points at the ends. At least the ends he saw were so, but he suspected they were all the same. Once he had watched Watley Eldon decorate a cart for Sunday back home in Emmons Field, Watt painting the scenes in bright colors and the intricate scroll work that surrounded them. For the borders, Watt let the point of his brush touch the cart, making a thin line that grew thicker as he pressed harder, and thinner again as he eased up. That was how the land looked, as if someone had streaked it with a monstrous brush of fire. Nothing grew with a burned thing, though some burns at least had the feel of a thing long done. Not so much as a hint of char remained in the air there, not a whiff even when he leaned down to break off a black twig and smell it. Old, yet nothing had come in to reclaim the land. Black gave way to green, and green to black, along knife-edge lines. In some way, the rest of the land lay as dead as a bird, though grass covered the ground, and leaves covered the trees. Everything had a faded look, like clothes too often washed, too long left in the sun. There were no birds or animals, not that Rand saw or heard.
Wedding cake.
No hawk wheeling in the sky, no bark of a hunting fox, no bird singing. Nothing rustled in the grass or lit on a tree branch. No bees or butterflies. Several times they crossed streams, the water shallow, though often it had dug itself a deep gully with steep banks the horses had to scramble down and climb on the other side. The water ran clear, the mud the horses' hooves stirred, never a minnow or tadpole wriggled out of the way. Not even a water spider danced across the surface, or a hovering lace.
Hey, John McDonald, how you doing?
The water was drinkable, which was just as well, since their water bottles could not last forever. Rand tasted it first and made Loyal and Huron wait to see if anything happened to him before he let them drink.
Wedding cake.
He had gotten them into this. It was his responsibility. The water was cool and wet, but that was the best that could be said for it. It tasted flat, as if it had been boiled. Loyal made a face, and the horses did not like it either, shaking their heads and drinking reluctantly. There was one sign of life, at least Rand thought it must be so. Twice he saw a wispy streak crawling across the sky like a line drawn with cloud. The lines were too straight to be natural, it seemed. He did not imagine what might make them. He did not mention the lines to others. Perhaps they did not see, Huron intent on the trail as he was, and Loyal drawn in on himself. They said nothing of the lines at any rate. When they had ridden half the morning, Loyal abruptly swung back from his huge horse without a word. Strode to a stand of giant's broom, their trunks splitting into many thick branches, stiff and straight, not a pace above the ground. At the top, all split again into leafy brush that gave them
do one more dab at this.
Rand pulled Red up and started to ask what he was doing, but something about the Ogier's manner, as if he himself were uncertain, kept Rand silent.
Hell yeah, that's good.
After staring at the tree, Loyal put his hands on a trunk and began to sing in a deep, soft rumble. Rand had heard Ogier tree song once. Loyal had sung to a dying tree and brought it back to life. And he had heard of sung wood, objects wrought from trees by the tree song. The talent was fading, Loyal said. He was one of the few who had the ability now. That was what made sung wood even more sought after and treasured. When he had heard Loyal sing before, it had been as if the earth itself sang. But now the Ogier murmured his song almost diffidently, and the land echoed it in a whisper. It seemed pure song, music without words, at least none that ran. If there were words, they faded into the music just as water pours into a spring. Huron gasped. Rand was not sure what it was Loyal did, or how. Soft as the song was, it caught him up hypnotically, filling his mind almost the way the void did. Loyal ran his big hands along the trunk, singing, caressing with his voice as well as his fingers. The trunk now seemed smoother somehow, as if his stroking were shaping it. Rand blinked. He was sure the piece Loyal worked on had branches at its top just like the others, but now it stopped in a rounded end, right above the Ogier's head. Rand opened his mouth, but the song quieted him. It seemed so familiar, that song, as if he should know it. Abruptly, Loyal's voice rose to a climax. Almost a hymn of thanks, it sounded, and ended, fading as a breeze fades. Burn me, Huron breathed. He looked stunned. Burn me. I never heard anything like... Burn me. In his hands, Loyal held a staff as tall as he was, and as thick as Rand's forearm, smooth and polished. Where the trunk had been on the giant's broom was a small stem of new growth. Rand took a deep breath. Always something new. Always something I didn't expect. And sometimes it isn't horrible. He watched Loyal mount, resting the staff across his saddle in front of him, and wondered why the Ogier wanted a staff at all, since they were riding. Then he saw the thick rod, not as big as it was, but in relation to the Ogier, saw the way Loyal handled it. A quarterstaff, he said, surprised.
Key lime pie.
I didn't know Ogier carried weapons, Loyal. Usually we do not, the Ogier replied, almost curtly. Usually. The price has always been too high. He hefted the huge quarterstaff and wrinkled his broad nose with distaste. Elder Hammond would surely say I am putting a long handle on my axe. But I am not just being hasty or rash, Rand. This place... He shivered and his ears twitched. We'll find our way back soon, Rand said, trying to sound confident. Loyal spoke as if he had not known. Everything is linked, Rand. Whether it lives or not, whether it thinks or not, everything that is fits together. The tree does not think, but it is part of the whole, and the whole has a feeling. I can't explain any more than I can explain what being happy is. But, Rand, this land was glad for a weapon to be made. Glad. light shine on us," Huron murmured nervously. "And the Creator's hand shelter us. Till we go to the last impulse of the moment, the light illumine our way." He kept repeating the catechism, as if it had a charm to protect him. Rand resisted the impulse to look around. He definitely did not look up. All it would take to break them all was another of those smoky lines across the sky right at that moment. "There's nothing here to hurt us," he said firmly, "and we'll keep a good watch and make sure nothing does." He wanted to laugh at himself, sounding so certain. He was not certain about anything, but watching the others, Loyal with his tufted ears drooping, and Huron trying not to look at anything, he knew one of them had to seem to be sure, at least, or fear and uncertainty would break them all apart.
We'll do a couple more of this, then we'll start round one.
He squeezed that thought out. Nothing to do with the wheel. Nothing to do with Taviran, or Aes Sedai, or the dragon. It's just the way it is, that's all. "Loyal, are you done here?" The Ogier nodded, regretfully rubbing the quarterstaff. Rand turned to Huron. "Do you still have the trail?" "I do, Lord Rand, I do that." "Then let's keep on with it. Once we find Fane and the Dark Friends, I will go home heroes with the dagger from At and the horn of Valir. Lead out, Huron." "Heroes? I'll settle for all of us getting out of here alive." "I do not like this place," the Ogier announced flatly. He held the quarterstaff as if he expected to have to use it soon. "As well we don't mean to stay here then, isn't it?" Rand said. Huron barked a laugh as if he had made a joke, but Loyal gave him a level look. "As well we don't, Rand." Yet as they rode on southward, he could see that his casual assumption that they would get home had picked them both up a little. Huron sat a bit straighter in his saddle, and Loyal's ears did not seem so wilted. It was no time or place to let them know he shared their fear, so he kept it to himself and fought it by himself. Huron kept his humor through the morning, murmuring, "As well we don't mean to stay," until Rand felt like telling him to be quiet. Toward midday, the sniffer did fall silent, shaking his head and frowning. Rand found he wished the man was still repeating his words and laughing. "Is there something wrong with the trail, Huron?" he asked. The sniffer shrugged, looking troubled.
Shit, hell
"Yes,
yeah.
Lord Rand. And
This one is key light page. And do one more, then we're going to start.
Must be one or the other.
With the
Have
round
you
one.
lost the trail? No shame if you have. You certainly weak to start. If we can't find the Dark Friends, we will find another stone and get back that way." Light, anything but that. Rand kept his face smooth. "If Dark Friends can come here and leave, so can we." "Oh, I haven't lost it, Lord Rand. I can still pick out the stink of them. It isn't that. It's just..." With a grimace, Huron burst out. "It's like I'm remembering it, Lord Rand, instead of knowing. But I'm not. There's dozens of trails crossing it all the time. Dozens and dozens, and all sorts of smells of violence. Some of them fresh, almost. Only washed out like everything else. This morning, right after we left the hollow, I could have sworn there were hundreds slaughtered right under my feet, just minutes before. But there weren't any bodies, and not a mark on the grass but our own hoof prints. A thing like that couldn't happen without the ground being torn up and bloodied. But there wasn't a mark. It's all like that, my lord. But I am following the trail. I am. This place just has me all on edge. That's it. That must be it." Rand glanced at Loyal. The Ogier did come up with the oddest knowledge at times, but he looked as puzzled as Huron. Rand made his voice more confident than he felt. "I know you are doing your best, Huron. We are all of us on edge. Just follow as best you can, and we'll find them." "As you say, Lord Rand." Huron booted his horse forward. "As you say." But by nightfall, there was still no sign of the Dark Friends, and Huron said the trail was fainter still. The sniffer kept muttering to himself about remembering. There had been no sign. Really no sign. Rand was not as good a tracker as Uno, but any boy in the Two Rivers was expected to track well enough to find a lost sheep or a rabbit for dinner. He had seen nothing. It was as if no living thing had ever disturbed the land before they came. There should have been something if the Dark Friends were ahead of them. but Huron kept following the trail he said he smelled. As the sun touched the horizon, they made camp in a stand of trees untouched by the burn, eating from their saddlebags. Flat bread and dried meat washed down with flat-tasting water. Hardly a filling meal, tough and far from tasty. Brand thought they might have enough for a week. After that, Huron ate slowly, determinedly, but Loyal gulped his down with a grimace and settled back with his pipe, the big quarterstaff close at hand. Brand kept their fire small and well hidden in the trees. Thane and his dark friends and Trollocs might be close enough to see a fire, for all of Huron's worries about the oddness of their trail. It seemed odd to him that he had begun to think of them as Thane's dark friends, Thane's Trollocs. Thane was just a madman. Then why did they rescue him? Thane had been part of the Dark One's scheme to find him. Perhaps it had something to do with that. And why is he running instead of chasing me? And what killed that Fade? What happened in that room full of flies? And those eyes watching me in Faldara? And that wind catching me like a beetle in pine sap? No, Balsamon has to be dead. The Aes Sedai did not believe it. Moraine did not believe it, nor the Averland. Stubbornly, he refused to think about it any longer. All he had to think about now was finding that dagger for Matt, finding Thane and the horn. It's never over, Althar. The voice was like a thin breeze whispering in the back of his head, a thin, icy murmur working its way into the crevices of his mind. He almost sought the void to escape it, but remembering what waited for him there, he pushed down the desire. In the half-dark of twilight, he worked the forms with his sword, the way Lan had taught, though without the void. Parting the silk, hummingbird kisses the honey rose, heron waiting in the rushes for balance. Losing himself in the swift, sure movements, forgetting for a time where he was, he worked until sweat covered him. Yet when he was done, it all came back. Nothing had changed. The weather was not cold, but he shivered and pulled his cloak around him as he hunched by the fire. The others caught his mood, and they finished eating quickly and in silence. No one complained when he kicked dirt over the last fitful flames. Brand took the first watch himself, walking the edges of the copse with his bow, sometimes easing his sword in its scabbard. The chill moon was almost full, standing high in the blackness, and the night was as silent as the day had been, as empty. Empty was the right word. The land was as empty as a dusky milk crock. It was hard to believe there was anyone in the whole world, in this world, except for the three of them. Hard to believe even the Dark Friends were there, somewhere ahead. To keep himself company, he unwrapped Tom Maryland's cloak, exposing the harp and flute in their hard leather cases atop the many-colored patches. He took the gold and silver flute from its case, remembering the gleeman teaching him as he fingered it, and played a few notes of The Wind That Shakes the Willow, softly so as not to wake the others. Even soft, the sad sound was too loud in that place, too real. With a sigh, he replaced the flute and did up the bundle again. He held the watch long into the night, letting the others sleep. He did not know how late it was when he suddenly realized a fog had risen. Close to the ground it lay, thick, making Huron and Loyal indistinct mounds, seeming to hump out of clouds. Thinner higher up, it still shrouded the land around them, hiding everything except the nearest trees. The moon seemed viewed through watered silk. Anything at all could come right up to them unseen. He touched his sword. Swords do no good against me, Luzthan. You should know that. The fog swirled around Rand's feet as he spun, the sword coming into his hands, Aaron marked blade upright before him. The void moved up inside him. For the first time, he barely noticed the tinted light of Sidene. A shadowy figure drew nearer through the mist, walking with a tall staff. Behind it, as if the shadow's shadow were vast, the fog darkened till it was blacker than night. Rand's skin crawled. Closer the figure came, until it resolved into the shape of a man, clothed and gloved in black, with a black silk mask covering his face, and the shadow came with it. His staff was black too, as if the wood had been charred, yet smooth and shining like water by moonlight. For an instant, the eye holes of the mask glowed as if fire stood behind them rather than eyes. But Rand did not need that to know who it was. Halseman, he breathed. This is a dream. It has to be. I fell asleep and... Balsman laughed like the roar of an open furnace. You always try to deny what is, Luz Theron. If I stretch out my hand, I can touch you, Kinslayer. I can always touch you. Always, everywhere. I'm not the dragon. My name is Randall. Rand clamped his teeth shut to stop himself. Oh, I know the name you use now, Luz Theron. I know every name you have used through age after age, long before you were even the Kinslayer. Balsman's voice began to rise in intensity. Sometimes the fires of his eyes flared so high that Rand could see them through the openings in the silk mask. See them like endless seas of flame. I know you. Know your blood and your line back to the first spark of life that ever was. Back to the first moment. You can never hide from me. Never. We are tied together as surely as two sides of the same coin. Ordinary men may hide in the sweep of the pattern, but Tavirans stand out like beacon fires on a hill. And you stand out as if 10,000 shining arrows stood in the sky to point you out. You are mine, and ever in the reach of my hand. Father of lies, Rand managed. Despite the void and wanted to cleave to the roof of his mouth. Light, please let it be a dream. The thought skittered outside the emptiness. Even one of those dreams that it can't really be standing in front of me. The Dark One is sealed in Shale Gould, sealed by the Creator at the moment of creation. He knew too much of the truth for it to help. You're well named. If you could just take me, why haven't you? Because you cannot. I walk in the light, and you cannot touch me. Balsman leaned on his staff and looked at Rand a moment, then moved to stand over Loyal and Huron, peering down at them. The vast shadow moved with him. He did not disturb the fog, Rand saw. He moved, the staff swung with his steps, but the gray mist did not swirl and eddy around his feet as it did around Rand's. That gave him heart. Perhaps Balsman was really not there. Perhaps it was a dream. You find odd followers, Balsman mused. You always did. These two, the girl who tries to watch over you, a poor guardian and weak Kinslayer. If she had a lifetime to grow, she would never grow strong enough for you to hide her instinct. Girl? Who? Moraine's surely not a girl. I don't know what you're talking about, Father of Lies. You lie and lie, and even when you tell the truth, you twist it to a lie. Do I, Luz Theron? You know what you are, who you are. I have told you, and so have those women of Tarvalon. Rand shifted, and Balsman gave a laugh like a small thunderclap. They think themselves safe in their white tower, but my followers number even some of their own. The Aes Sedai called Moraine told you who you are, did she not? Did she lie? Or is she one of mine? The White Tower means to use you like a hound on a leash. Do I lie? Do I lie when I say you seek the Horn of Valier? He laughed again. Calm of the void or no, it was all Rand could do, not to cover his ears. Sometimes old enemies fight so long that they become allies and never realize it. They think they strike at you, but they have become so closely linked, it is as if you guided the blow yourself. You don't guide me, Rand said. I deny you. I have 1,000 strings tied to you, Kinslayer. Each one finer than silk and stronger than steel. Time has tied 1,000 cords between us. The battle we two have fought, do you remember any part of that? Do you have any glimmering that we have fought before? Battles without number, back to the beginning of time? I know much that you do not. That battle will soon end. The last battle is coming. The last Luz Theron. Do you really think you can avoid it? You poor, shivering worm. You will serve me or die. And this time the cycle will not begin anew with your death. The grave belongs to the great Lord of the Dark. This time, if you die, you will be destroyed utterly. This time the wheel will be broken, whatever you do, and the world remade to a new mold. Serve me! Serve Shaitan, or be destroyed forever! With the utterance of that name, the air seemed to thicken. The darkness behind Baalzamon swelled and grew, threatening to swallow everything. Rand felt it engulfing him, colder than ice and hotter than coals, both at the same time, blacker than death, sucking him into the depths of it, overwhelming the world. He gripped his sword hilt till his knuckles hurt. I deny you, and I deny your power. I walk in the light. The light preserves us, and we shelter in the palm of the Creator's hand. He blinked. Baalzamon still stood there, and the great darkness still hung behind him. But it was as if all the rest had been illusion. Do you want to see my face? It was a whisper. Rand swallowed. No. You should. A gloved hand went to the black mask. No! The mask came away. It was a man's face, horribly burned. Yet between the black-edged red crevices crossing those features, the skin looked healthy and smooth. Dark eyes looked at Rand. Cruel lips smiled with a flash of white teeth. Look at me, Kinslayer, and see the 100th part of your own fate. For a moment, eyes and mouth became doorways into endless caverns of fire.
Hey, Babylon, how you doing?
This is what the power unchecked can do. Even me. I know the path to greater power. It will burn you like a moth flying into a furnace. Rand felt the void around him. I won't. You cannot stop yourself. Leave me alone. Baalzamon's voice became soft, insinuating. You can have power again, Luz Theron. You are linked to it now, this moment.
That roach one's a little harsh right now.
See it. Feel it, Luz Theron. Feel the
glow was doing good out there tonight.
Feel the power that could be yours. All you must do is reach out for it. But the shadow is there between you and it. Madness and death. You need not die, Luz Theron. Not ever again. No, Rand said, but the voice went on, burrowing into him. I can teach you to control that power, so that it does not destroy you. No one else lives who can teach you that. The great Lord of the Dark can shelter you from the madness. The power can be yours, and you can live forever. Forever. All you must do in return is serve. Only serve. I am yours, my Lord. And power will be yours. Power beyond anything those...
Battery low. Battery. 10%.
Oh, if you will only offer yourself up and serve. Rand licked his lips. Not to go there. Not to die. Never! I walk in the light, he grated hoarsely, and you can never touch me. Touch you, Luz. You. I can consume you. Taste it and know as I knew. Those dark eyes became fire again, and that
hell yeah, Babylon.
Flame that blossomed and grew until it seemed brighter than a summer sun. Grew, and suddenly Rand's sword glowed as if just drawn from the forge. He cried out as the hilt burned his hands, screamed and dropped the sword. And the fog caught fire, fire that leaped, fire that burned everything. Yelling, Rand beat at his clothes as they smoked and charred and fell in ashes. Beat with his hands that blackened and shriveled as naked flesh cracked and peeled away in the flames. He screamed. Pain beat at the void inside him, and he tried to crawl deeper into the emptiness. The glow was there, the tainted light just out of sight. Half mad, no longer caring what it was, he reached for Sidene, tried to wrap it around him, tried to hide in it from the burning and the pain. As suddenly as the fire began, it was gone. Rand stared wonderingly at his hand, sticking out of the red sleeve of his coat. There was not so much as a singe on the wool. I imagined it all. Frantically, he looked around. Balsamon was gone. Duran shifted in his sleep. The sniffer and Loyal were still only two mounds sticking up out of the low fog. I did imagine it. Before relief had a chance to grow, pain stabbed his right hand, and he turned it up to look. There, across the palm, was branded a heron. The heron from the hilt of his sword. Angry and red. As neatly done as though drawn from an artist's skill. Fumbling a kerchief from his coat pocket, he wrapped it around his hand. The hand throbbed now. The void would help with that. He was aware of the pain in the void, but he did not feel it. But he put the thought out of his head. Twice now, unknowing, and once on purpose. He could not forget that. He had tried to channel the one power while he was in the void. It was with that Balsamon wanted to tempt him. It was that Moraine and the Amerlin seat wanted him to do. He would not. Chapter 16. In the Mirror of Darkness. You should not have done it, Lord Rand, Duran said when Rand woke the others just at daybreak. The sun yet hid below the horizon, but there was light enough to see. The fog had melted away, while dark still held, fading reluctantly. If you use yourself up to spare us, my lord, who will see to getting us home? I needed to think, Rand said. Nothing showed the fog had ever been, or Balsamon.
Medical
The
grade,
finger
hell
of the
yeah.
kerchief wrapped around his right hand. There was that to prove Balsamon
I'll
had been
be
there.
right back.
He wanted to be away from this place. Time to be in the saddle if we are going to catch Fane's dark friends. Pastime. We can eat flatbread while we ride. Loyal paused in the act of stretching, his arms reaching as high as Huron could have, standing on Rand's shoulders. Your hand, Rand. What happened? I heard it. It's nothing. I have a salve in my saddlebags. It is nothing. Rand knew he sounded harsh. But one look at the brand would surely bring questions he did not want to answer. Time's wasting. Let's be on our way. He set about saddling Red, awkwardly because of his injured hand, and Huron jumped to his own horse. No need to be so touchy, Loyal muttered. A track. Rand decided as they set out would be something natural in that world. There were too many unnatural things there. Even a single hoofprint would be welcome. Fane and the Dark Friends and the Trollocs had to leave some mark. He concentrated on the ground they passed over, trying to make out any trace that could have been made by another living thing. There was nothing. Not a turned stone, not a disturbed clod of earth. Once he looked at the ground behind them just to reassure himself the land did take hoofprints.
Hey,
Straight,
High
turfed,
Life, how
and
you
bent
doing?
grass marked their passage plainly.
I hope
Yet
you're
ahead,
doing
the
well,
ground was
bro.
undisturbed. But Huron insisted he could smell the trail, faint and thin, but still heading south. Once again, the sniffer put all his attentions on the trail he followed, like a hound tracking deer. And once again, Loyal rode lost in his own thoughts, muttering to himself and rubbing the huge quarterstaff held across his saddle in front of him. They had not been riding more than an hour when Rand saw the spire ahead. He was so busy watching for tracks that the tapering column already stood thick and tall above the trees in the middle distance when he first noticed it. I wonder what that is. It lay directly in their path. I don't know what it can be, Rand, Loyal said. If this was our own world, Lord Rand. Huron shifted uncomfortably in his saddle. Well, that monument Lord Ingtar was talking about, the one to Arthur Hawkwing's victory over the Trollocs, it was a great spire. But it was torn down 1,000 years ago. There's nothing left but a big mound, like a hill. I saw it when I went to Cairhien for Lord Agilmar. According to Ingtar, Loyal said, that is still 3 or 4 days ahead of us, if it is here at all. I don't know why it should be. I don't think there are any people here at all. The sniffer put his eyes back on the ground. Well, that's just it, isn't it, Builder? No people, but there it is ahead of us. Maybe we ought to keep clear of it, my Lord Rand. No telling what it is, or who's there in a place like this. Rand drummed his fingers in the high pommel of his saddle for a moment, thinking. We have to stick as close to the trail as we can, he said finally. We don't seem to be getting any closer to Fane as it is, and I don't want to lose more time if we can avoid it. If we see any people, or anything out of the ordinary, then we'll circle around it until we pick it up again. But until then, we keep on. As you say, my lord. The sniffer sounded odd, and he gave Rand a quick sidelong look. As you say. Rand frowned for a moment before he understood, and then it was his turn to sigh. Lords did not explain to those who followed them, only to other lords. I didn't ask him to take me for a bloody lord, but he did, a small voice seemed to answer him. And you let him. You made the choice. Right. Now the duty is yours.
Hell yeah.
Take the trail, Huron, Rand said. With a flash of relieved grin, the sniffer heeled his horse onward. The weak sun climbed as they rode, and by the time it was overhead, they were only a mile or so from the spire. They had reached one of the streams, in a gully a pace deep, and the intervening trees were sparse. Rand could see the mound it was built on, like a round, flat-topped hill. The gray spire itself rose at least 100 spans, and he could just make out now that the top was carved in the likeness of a bird with outstretched wings. A hawk, Rand said. It is Hawkwing's monument. It must be. There were people here, whether there are now or not. They just built it in another place here, and never tore it down. Think of it, Huron. When we get back, you'll be able to tell them what the monument really looked like. There will only be 3 of us in the whole world who have ever seen it. Huron nodded. Yes, my lord. My children would like to hear that tale. Their father seeing Hawkwing's spire.
Round 1 done.
Loyal began worriedly. We can gallop the distance, Rand said. Come on.
Do round 2.
The gallop will do us good. This place may be dead, but we're alive. Rand, Loyal said. I don't think that is up. Not waiting to hear, Rand dug his boots into Red's flanks, and the stallion sprang forward. He splashed across the shallow ribbon of water in 2 strides, then scrabbled up the far side. Huron launched his horse right behind him. Rand heard Loyal calling behind them, but he laughed, waved for the Ogier to follow, and galloped on. If he kept his eyes on one spot, the land did not seem to slip and slide so badly, and the wind felt good on his face. The mound covered a good 2 hides, but the grassy slope rose at an easy slant. The gray spire reared into the sky, squared and broad enough, despite its height, to seem massive, almost squat. Rand's laughter died, and he pulled Red up, his face grim. Is that Hawkwing's monument, Lord Rand? Huron asked uneasily. It doesn't look right, somehow. Rand recognized the harsh, angular script that covered the face of the monument, and he recognized some of the symbols chiseled on the breadth. Chiseled as tall as a man. The horn skull of the Double Trollocs, the iron fist of the Daimon, the trident of the Cobalt, and the whirlwind of the Ophrite. There was a hawk, too, carved near the bottom. With a wingspan of 10 paces, it lay on its back, pierced by a lightning bolt, and ravens pecked at its eyes. The huge wings atop the spire seemed to block the sun. He heard Loyal galloping up behind him. I tried to tell you, Rand, Loyal said. It is a raven, not a hawk. I could see it clearly. Huron turned his horse, refusing even to look at the spire any longer. But how? Rand said. Arthur Hawkwing won a victory over the Trollocs here.
Distracted. I got a game going.
Not here, Loyal said slowly. Obviously not here. From stone to stone run the lines of it, between the worlds that might be. I've been thinking on it, and I believe I know what the worlds that might be are. Maybe I do. Worlds, our world, might have been if things had happened differently. Maybe that's why it is all so washed out looking. Because it's an if,
A maybe. Just a shadow of the real world. In this world, I think the Trollocs won. Maybe that's why we have not seen any villages or people.
Rand's skin crawled. Where Trollocs won, they did not leave humans alive except for food. If they had won across an entire world, if the Trollocs had won, they would be everywhere. We'd have seen 1,000 of them by now. We'd be dead since yesterday.
I do not know, Rand. Perhaps after they killed the people, they killed one another. Trollocs live to kill. That's all they do. That is all they are. I just don't
Hell yeah,
know.
Babylon.
The Lord Rand, Huron said abruptly. Something moved down there. Rand whirled his horse, ready to see charging Trollocs, but Huron was pointing back the way they had come, at nothing. What did you see, Huron? Where? The sniffer let his arm drop. We're right at the edge of that clump of trees there, about a mile. I thought it was a woman. And something else I couldn't make out, but he shivered. It's so hard to make out things that aren't under your nose. This place has my guts all a-whirl. I'm likely imagining things, my lord. This is a place for queer fancies. His shoulders hunched as if he felt the spire pressing on them. No doubt it was just the wind, my lord, Loyal said.
There's something else to consider, I'm afraid.
He sounded troubled again. He pointed southward.
What do you see off there?
Rand squinted against the way things far off seemed to slide toward him. Land like we've been crossing, trees, then some hills and mountains. Nothing else. What do you want me to see?
The mountains,
Loyal sighed. The tufts of his ears drooped, and the ends of his eyebrows were down on his cheeks.
That has to be Kinslayer's dagger, Rand. There aren't any other mountains they could be. Unless this world is completely different from ours. But Kinslayer's dagger lies more than 100 leagues south of the Eranin. A good bit more. Distances are hard to judge in this place, but I think we will reach them before dark.
He did not have to say any more. They could not have covered over 100 leagues in less than 3 days. Without thinking, Rand muttered, maybe this place is like the Ways. He heard Huron moan, and instantly regretted not keeping a rein on his tongue. It was not a pleasant thought. Enter a way gate, they could be found just outside Ogier Steading, and in Ogier Groves. Enter and walk for a day, and you could leave by another way gate 100 leagues from where you started. The ways were dark now, and foul, and to travel them meant to risk death or madness. Even Fades feared to travel the ways.
If it is Rand,
Loyal said slowly,
can a misstep kill us here too? Are there things we have not yet seen that can do worse than kill us?
Huron moaned again. They had been drinking the water, riding along as if they had not a concern in the world. Unconcern would kill quickly in the Ways. Rand swallowed, hoping his stomach would settle. It is too late for worrying about what is past, he said. From here on, though, we will watch our step. He glanced at Huron. The sniffer's head had sunk between his shoulders, and his eyes darted as if he wondered what would leap at him, and from where. The man had run down murderers, but this was more than he had ever bargained for. Hold on to yourself, Huron. You're not dead yet, and we won't be. We will just have to be careful from here on, that's all. It was at that moment they heard the scream, thin with distance. A woman, Huron said. Even this much that was normal seemed to rouse him a little. I knew I saw. Another scream came, more desperate than the first. Not unless she can fly, Rand said. She's south of us. He kicked Red to a dead run in 2 strides.
Be careful, you said,
Loyal shouted after him.
White Rand, remember, be careful.
Rand lay low on Red's back, letting the stallion run. The screams drew him on. It was easy to say be careful, but there was terror in that woman's voice. She did not sound as if she had time for him to be careful. On the edge of another stream, in a sheer-banked channel, deeper than most, he drew rein. Red skidded in a shower of stones and dirt. The screams were coming there. He took it all in at a glance. Perhaps 200 paces away, the woman stood beside her horse in the stream, both of them backed against the far bank. With a broken length of branch, she was fending off a snarling something. Rand swallowed, stunned for a moment. If a frog were as big as a bear, or if a bear had a frog's gray-green hide, it might look like that. A big bear. Not letting himself think about the creature, he leaped to the ground, unlimbering his bow. If he took the time to ride closer, it might be too late. The woman was barely keeping the thing at the edge of the branch. It was a fair distance. He kept blinking as he tried to judge it. The distance seemed to change by spans every time the thing moved. He had a big target. His bandaged hand made drawing awkward, but he had an arrow loosed almost before his feet were set. The shaft sank into the leathery hide for half its length, and the creature spun to face Rand. Rand took a step back despite the distance. That huge, wedge-shaped head had never been on any animal he could imagine, nor that wide, horny-lipped beak of a mouth, hooked for ripping flesh. And it had 3 eyes, small and fierce, and ringed by hard-looking ridges. Gathering itself, the thing bounded toward him down the stream in great splashing leaps. To Rand's eye, some of the leaps seemed to cover twice as much distance as others, though he was sure they were all the same. "An eye," the woman called. She sounded surprisingly calm, considering her screams. "You must hit an eye to kill it." He drew the fletching of another arrow back to his ear. Reluctantly, he sought the void. He did not want to, but it was for this that Tam had taught him, and he knew he could never make the shot without it. My father, he thought with a sense of loss, and emptiness filled him. The quavering light of Sidene was there, but he shut it away. He was one with the bow, with the arrow, with the monstrous shape leaping toward him. One with the tiny eye. He did not even feel the arrow leave the bowstring. The creature rose in another bound, and at the peak, the arrow struck its central eye. The thing landed, fountain another huge splash of water and mud. Ripples spread out from it, but it did not move. "Well shot, and bravely," the woman called. She was on her horse, riding to meet him. Rand felt vaguely surprised that she had not run once the thing's attention was diverted.
That's always
She
good
rode
having
past
some
the bulk,
fresh
still
apples
surrounded
like
by the
that.
ripples of its dying, without even a downward glance, scrambled her horse up the bank and dismounted. Few men would stand to face the charge of a Grom, my lord. She was all in white, her dress divided for riding and belted in silver, and her boots, peeking out from under her hems, were tooled in silver too. Even her saddle was white and silver-mounted. Her snowy mare, with its arched neck and dainty step, was almost as tall as Rand's bay.
Can't beat free apples.
But it was the woman herself, she was perhaps Nynaeve's age, he thought, who held his eyes. She was tall, for one thing, a hand taller, and she could almost look him in the eyes. For another, she was beautiful. Ivory pale skin contrasting sharply with long, night-dark hair and black eyes. He had seen beautiful women. Moraine was beautiful, if cool, and so was Nynaeve when her temper did not get the better of her. Egwene and Elaine, the daughter heir of Andor, were each enough to take a man's breath. But this woman... His tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. He felt his heart start beating again. "Your retainers, my lord?" Startled, he looked around. Huron and Loyal had joined them. Huron was staring the way Rand knew he had been, and even the Ogier seemed fascinated. "My friends," he said. "Loyal and Huron. My name is Rand. Randolph Thor."
"I have never thought of it before,"
Loyal said abruptly, sounding as if he were talking to himself.
"But if there is such a thing as perfect human beauty in face and form, then you..."
"Loyal!" Rand shouted. The Ogre's ears stiffened in embarrassment. Rand's own ears were red. Loyal's words had been too close to what he himself was thinking. The woman laughed musically, but the next instant she was all regal formality, like a queen on her throne. I am called Celine, she said. You have risked your life and saved mine. I am yours, Lord Randolph Thor. And to Rand's horror, she knelt before him. Not looking at Huron or Loyal, he hastily pulled her to her feet. A man who will not die to save a woman is no man. Immediately, he disgraced himself by blushing. It was a Shinaran saying, and he knew it sounded pompous before it was out of his mouth. But her manner had infected him, and he could not stop it. I mean, that is, it was... Fool, you can't tell a woman saving her life was nothing. It was my honor. That sounded vaguely Shinaran and formal. He hoped it would do. His mind was as blank of anything else to say as if he were still in the void. Suddenly he became conscious of her eyes on him. Her expression had not changed, but her dark eyes made him feel as if he were naked. Unbidden, the thought came of Celine with no clothes. His face went red again. Where are you from, Celine? We have not seen another human being since we came here. Is your town nearby? She looked at him thoughtfully, and he stepped back. Her look made him too aware of how close to her he was. I am not from this world, my lord, she said. There are no people here. Nothing living except the Grolm, and a few other creatures like them. I am from Kyrian. And as to how I came here, I don't know exactly. I was riding out, and I stopped to nap, and when I woke, my horse and I were here. I can only hope, my lord, that you can save me again, and help me go home. Celine, I am not a... That is... Please call me Rand. He felt his ears hot again. Light, it won't hurt anything if she thinks I'm a lord. Burn me, it won't hurt anything. If you wish it, Rand. Her smile made his throat tighten. You will help me? Of course I will. Burn me, but she's beautiful, and looking at me like I'm a hero in a story. He shook his head, declared it foolishness. But first we have to find the men we are following. I'll try to keep you out of danger, but we must find them. Coming with us will be better than staying here alone. For a moment she was silent, her face blank and smooth. Rand had no idea what she was thinking, except that she seemed to be studying him anew. A man of duty, she said finally. A small smile touched her lips. I like that. Yes. Who are these miscreants you follow? The dark friends and Trollocs, milady, Huron burst out. He made an awkward bow to her from his saddle. They did murder in Faldara Keep and stole the horn of Valdir, my lady. But Lord Rand will fetch it back. Rand stared at the sniffer ruefully. Huron gave a weak grin. So much for secrecy. It did not matter here, he supposed, but once back in their world... Celine, you must not say anything of the horn to anyone. If it gets out, we'll have 100 people on our heels trying to get the horn for themselves. No, it would never do, Celine said. For that to fall into the wrong hands. The horn of Valdir. I could not tell you how often I've dreamed of touching it, holding it in my hands. You must promise me when you have it, you will let me touch it. Before I can do that, we have to find it. We had better be on our way.
Had to get it unclogged.
Rand offered his hand to help her mount. Huron scrambled down to hold her stirrup. Whatever that thing was I killed, a Grolm? There may be more of them around. Her hand was frozen. There was surprising strength in her grip, and her skin was silk. Something softer. Rand shivered. There always are, Celine said. The tall white mare frisked and bared her teeth once at Red, yet Celine's touch on the reins quieted her. Rand slung his bow across his back and climbed onto Red. Light, How could anyone's skin be so soft? Urine, where's the trail? Urine? Urine! The sniffer gave a start and left off staring at Celine. Yes, Lord Rand. The trail. South, my lord. Still south. Then let's ride. Rand gave an uneasy look at the gray-green bulk of the chrome lying in the stream. It had been better believing they were the only living things in that world. Take the trail, Huron. Celine rode alongside Rand at first, talking of this and that, asking him questions and calling him Lord. Half a dozen times he started to tell her he was no lord, only a shepherd. And every time, looking at her, he could not get the words out. A lady like her would not talk the same way with a shepherd, he was sure, even one who had saved her life. You will be a great man when you found the Horn of Valir, she told him. A man for the legends. The man who sounds the horn will make his own legends. I don't want to sound it, and I don't want to be part of any legend. He did not know if she was wearing perfume, but there seemed to be a scent to her, something that filled his head with her. Spices, sharp and sweet, tickling his nose, making him swallow. Every man wants to be great. You could be the greatest man in all the ages. It sounded too close to what Moraine had said. The dragon reborn would certainly stand out through the ages. Not me, he said fervently. I'm just... He thought of her scorn if he told her now that he was only a shepherd after letting her believe he was a lord, and changed what he had been going to say. Just trying to find it, and to help a friend. She was silent for a moment, then said, You've hurt your hand. It is nothing. He started to put his injured hand inside his coat. It throbbed from holding the reins, but she reached out and took it. He was so surprised he let her. And then there was nothing to do except either jerk away rudely or else let her unwrap the kerchief. Her touch felt cool and sure. His palm was angrily red and puffy, but the heron still stood out, plainly and clearly. She touched the brand with a finger, but made no comment on it, not even to ask how he had come by it. This could stiffen your hand if it's untended. I have an ointment that should help. From a pocket inside her cloak, she produced a small stone vial, unstopped it, and began gently rubbing a white salve on the burn as they rode. The ointment felt cold at first, then seemed to melt away warmly into his flesh. And it worked as well as Nynaeve's ointments sometimes did. He stared in amazement as the redness faded, and the swelling went down under her stroking fingers. Some men, she said, not raising her eyes from his hand, choose to seek greatness, while others are forced to it. It is always better to choose than to be forced. The man who's forced is never completely his own master. He must dance on the strings of those who forced him. Rand pulled his hand free. The brand looked a week old or more, all but healed. What do you mean? He demanded. She smiled at him, and he felt ashamed of his outburst. Why, the horn, of course, she said calmly, putting away her salve. Her mare, stepping along beside Red, was tall enough that her eyes were only a little below Rand's. If you find the Horn of Valir, there will be no avoiding greatness. But will it be forced on you, or will you take it? That's the question. He flexed his hand. She sounded so much like Moraine. Are you Aes Sedai? Celine's eyebrows lifted. Her dark eyes glittered at him, but her voice was soft. Aes Sedai? I? No. I didn't mean to offend you. I'm sorry. Offend me? I am not offended, but I'm no Aes Sedai. Her lip curled in a sneer. Even that was beautiful. They cower in what they think is safety when they could do so much. They serve when they could rule, let men fight wars when they could bring order to the world. No. Never call me Aes Sedai. She smiled and laid her hand on his arm to show she was not angry. Her touch made him swallow. But he was relieved when she let the mare drop back beside Loyal. Huron bobbed his head at her like an old family retainer. Rand was relieved, but he missed her presence too. She was only 2 spans away. He twisted in his saddle to stare at her, riding by Loyal's side. The Ogier was bent half double in his saddle so he could talk with her, but that was not the same as being right there beside him. Close enough for him to smell her heady scent, close enough to touch. He settled back angrily. It was not that he wanted to touch her exactly. He reminded himself that he loved Egwene. He felt guilty at the need for reminding. But she was beautiful, and she thought he was a lord, and she said he could be a great man. He argued sourly with himself inside his head. Moraine says you can be great too. The dragon reborn. Selene is not Aes Sedai. That's right. She's a Carianan noblewoman, and you're a shepherd. She doesn't know that. How long do you let her believe a lie? It's only till we get out of this place. If we get out. If. On that note, his thoughts subsided to sullen silence. He tried to keep a watch on the country through which they rode. If Selene said there were more of those things, those Grolm, about, he believed her. And Huron was too intent on smelling the trail to notice anything else. Loyal was too wrapped up in his talk with Selene to see anything until it bit him on the heel. But it was hard to watch. Turning his head too quickly made his eyes water. A hill or a stand of trees could seem a mile off when seen from one angle, and only a few hundred spans when seen from another. The mountains were growing closer, of that much he was sure. Kinslayer's dagger looming against the sky now, a sawtooth expanse of snow-capped peaks. The land around them already rose in foothills, heralding the coming of the mountains. They would reach the edge of the mountains proper well before dark, perhaps in only another hour or so. More than 100 leagues in less than 3 days. Worse than that. We spent most of a day south of the Arnon in the real world. Over 100 leagues in less than 2 days here.
She says you were right about this place, Rand.
Rand gave a start before he realized Loyal had ridden up beside him. He looked for Selene and found her riding with Huron. The sniffer was grinning and ducking his head and all but knuckling his forehead at everything she said. Rand glanced sideways at the Ogier. I'm surprised you could let her go, the way you two had your heads together. What do you mean, I was right?
She is a fascinating woman, isn't she? Some of the elders don't know as much as she does about history, especially the Age of Legends, and about... Oh, yes. She says you are right about the ways, Rand. The Aes Sedai, some of them, studied worlds like this. That study was the basis of how they grew the ways. She says there are worlds where it is time rather than distance that changes. Spend a day in one of those, and you might come back to find a year has passed in the real world, or 20. Or it could be the other way round. Those worlds, this one, all the others, are reflections of the real world, she says. This one seems pale to us because it is a weak reflection, a world that had little chance of ever being. Others are almost as likely as ours. They are as solid as our world and have people. The same people, she says, Rand. Imagine it. You could go to one of them and meet yourself. The pattern has infinite variation, she says, and every variation that can be, will be. Rand shook his head, then wished he had not, as the landscape flickered back and forth and his stomach lurched. He took a deep breath. How does she know all that? You know more about things than anybody I ever met before, Loyal, and all you knew about this world amounted to no more than a rumor. She's Cairienan, Rand. The Royal Library in Cairien is one of the greatest in the world, perhaps the greatest outside Tarvalon. The Aiel spared it deliberately, you know, when they burned Cairien. They will not destroy a book. Did you know that they...
I don't care about Aielman, Rand said hotly. If Selene knows so much, I hope she read how to get us home from here. I wish Selene... You wish Selene what? The woman laughed as she joined them. Rand stared at her as if she had been gone months. That was how he felt. I wish Selene would come ride with me some more. he said. Loyal chuckled and Rand felt his face burn. Celine smiled and looked at Loyal. You will excuse us, Alanton? The Ogier bowed in his saddle and let his big horse fall back, the tufts on his ears drooping with reluctance. For a time, Rand rode in silence, enjoying Celine's presence. Now and again, he looked at her out of the corner of his eye. He wished he could get his feelings about her straight. Could she be an Aes Sedai despite her denial? Someone sent by Moraine to push him along whatever path he was meant to follow in the Aes Sedai's plans. Moraine could not have known he would be taken to this strange world, and no Aes Sedai would have tried to fend off that beast with a stick when she could strike it dead or send it running with the power. Well, since she took him for a lord and no one in Cairhien knew different, he might keep on letting her think it. She was surely the most beautiful woman he had ever seen, intelligent and learned. And she thought he was brave. What more could a man ask from a wife? That's crazy, too. I'd marry Egwene if I could marry anyone. But I can't ask a woman to marry a man who's going to go mad, maybe hurt her. But Celine was so beautiful. She was studying his sword, he saw. He readied the words in his head. No, he was not a blade master, but his father had given him the sword. Damn. Why couldn't you really be my father? He squashed the thought ruthlessly. That was a magnificent shot, Celine said. No, I'm not a... Rand began, then blinked. A shot? Yes. A tiny target, that eye, moving at 100 paces. You've a wonderful hand with that bow. Rand shifted awkwardly. Thank you. It's a trick my father taught me. He told her about the void, about how Tam had taught him how to use it with the bow. He even found himself telling her about Lan and his sword lessons. The oneness, she said, sounding satisfied. She saw his questioning look and added, that is what it is called in some places. The oneness. To learn the full use of it, it is best to wrap it around you continuously, to dwell in it at all times, or so I've heard. He did not even have to think about what lay waiting for him in the void to know his answer to that. But what he said was, I'll think about it. Wear this void of yours all the time, Randall Thor, and you'll learn uses for it you never suspected. I said I'll think about it. She opened her mouth again, but he cut her off. You know all these things. About the void, the oneness, you call it. About this world. Loyal reads books all the time. He's read more books than I've ever seen. And he's never seen anything but a fragment about the stones. Celine drew herself up straight in her saddle. Suddenly she reminded him of Moraine and of Queen Morgase when they were angry. There was a book written about these worlds, she said tightly. Mirrors of the Wheel. You see, the Alanton has not seen all the books that are. What is this Alanton you call him? I've never heard. The portal stone beside which I woke up is there, Celine said, pointing into the mountains off to the east of their path. Rand found himself wishing for her warmth again and her smiles. If you take me to it, you can return me to my home as you promised. We can reach it in an hour. Rand barely looked where she pointed. Using the stone, a portal stone she called it, and wielding the power if you were to take her back to the real world. Huron, how is the trail? Tighter than ever, Lord Rand, but still there. The sniffer spared a quick grin and bob of his head for Celine. I think it's starting to angle off to the west. There's some easier passes there, toward the tip of the dagger, as I recall from when I went to Cairhien that time. Rand sighed. Bane, or one of his dark friends, has to know another way to use the stones. The dark friend couldn't use the power. I have to follow the horn, Celine. How do you know your precious horn is even in this world? Come with me, Rand. You'll find your legend, I promise you. Come with me. You can use the stone, this portal stone, yourself, he said angrily. Before the words were out of his mouth, he wanted them back. Why does she have to keep talking about legends? Stubbornly, he forced himself to go on. The portal stone didn't bring you here by itself. You did it, Celine. If you made the stone bring you here, you can make it take you back. I'll take you to it, but then I must go after the horn. I know nothing about using the portal stones, Rand. If I did anything, I don't know what it was. Rand studied her. She sat her saddle, straight-backed and tall, just as regally as before, but somehow softer, too. Proud, yet vulnerable, and needing him. He had put Nynaeve's age to her, a handful of years older than himself, but he had been wrong, he realized. She was more his own age, and beautiful, and she needed him. The thought, just the thought of the void flickered through his head, and of the light. Saidin. To use the portal stone, he must dip himself back into that taint. Stay with me, Celine, he said. We'll find the horn and Matt's dagger, and we'll find a way back, I promise you. Just stay with me. You always... Celine drew a deep breath as if to calm herself. You always are so stubborn. Well, I can admire stubbornness in a man. There is little to a man who's too easily biddable. Rand colored. It was too much like the things Egwene sometimes said, and they had all but been promised in marriage since they were children. From Celine, the words, and the direct look that went with them, were a shock. He turned to tell Huron to press on with the trail. From behind them came a distant coughing grunt. Before Rand could whirl red to look, another bark sounded, and 3 more on its heels. At first he could make out nothing as the landscape seemed to waver in his eyes, but then he saw them through the widespread stands of trees just topping a hill. 5 shapes, it seemed, only half a mile distant, a bare 1,000 paces at most, and coming in 30-foot bounds. Grohl, Celine said calmly. A small pack, but they have our scent, it seems. Chapter 17. Choices. We'll run for it, Rand said. Huron, can you gallop and still follow the trail? Yes, Lord Rand. Then push on, we will... It won't do any good, Celine said. Her white mare was the only one of their mounts not dancing at the gruff barks coming from the Grolm. They don't give up, not ever. Once they have your scent, Grolm keep coming, day and night, until they run you down. You must kill them all or find a way to go elsewhere. Rand, the portal stone can take us elsewhere. No, we can kill them. I can. I already killed 1. There are only 5. If I can just find... He cast around for the spot he needed and found it. Follow me. Digging his heels in, he set Red to a gallop, confident before he heard their hooves that the others would come. The place he had chosen was a low round hill, bare of trees. Nothing could come close without him seeing. He swung down from his saddle and unlimbered his longbow. Loyal and Huron joined him on the ground, the Ogier hefting his huge quarterstaff, the Sniffer with his short sword in his fist. Neither quarterstaff nor sword would be of much use if the Grolm closed with them. I won't let them get close. This risk is not necessary, Celine said. She barely looked toward the Grolm, bending from her saddle to concentrate on Rand. We can easily reach the portal stone ahead of them. I will stop them. Hastily, Rand counted the arrows remaining in his quiver. 18, each as long as his arm, 10 of them with point-like chisels designed to drive through Trolloc armor. They would do as well for Grolm as for Trollocs. He stuck 4 of those upright in the ground in front of him. A 50. You can do no good down here. Mount and be ready to take Celine to the stone if any get through. He wondered whether he could kill one of the things with his sword, if it came to that. You are mad. Even the power is not as bad as this. Loyal said something, but he did not hear. He was already seeking the void, as much to escape his own thoughts as for need. You know what's waiting. But this way I don't have to touch it. The glow was there, the light just out of sight. It seemed to flow toward him, but the emptiness was all. Thoughts darted across the surface of the void, visible in that tainted light. Sidene. The power. Madness. Death. Extraneous thoughts. He was one with the bow, with the arrow, with the things topping the next rise. The Grom came on, overreaching one another in their leaps. 5 great leathery shapes, triple-eyed, with horny maws gaping. Their grunting calls rebounded from the void, barely heard. Rand was not aware of raising his bow or drawing the fletching against his cheek to his ear. He was one with the beasts, one with the center eye of the first. Then the arrow was gone. The first Grom died. His companions leaped on it as it fell, beak of a mouth ripping gobbets of flesh. It snarled at the others, and they circled wide. But they came on, and as if compelled, it abandoned its meal and leaped after them, its horny maw already bloody. Rand worked smoothly, unconsciously. Knock and release. Knock and release. The 5th arrow left his bow, and he lowered it, still deep in the void, as the 4th Grom fell like a huge puppet with its strings cut. Though the final arrow still flew, somehow he knew there was no need for another shot. The last beast collapsed as if its bones had melted, a feathered shaft jutting from its center eye. Always the center eye. "Magnificent, Lord Rand," Huron said. I've never seen shooting like that." The void held Rand. The light called to him, and he reached toward it. It surrounded him, filled him. "Lord Rand?" Huron touched his arm, and Rand gave a start, the emptiness filling up with what was around him. "Are you all right, my lord?" Rand brushed his forehead with fingertips. It was dry. He felt as if it should have been covered with sweat. I'm fine, Huron." "It grows easier each time you do it, I've heard," Selene said. "The more you live in the oneness, the easier." Rand glanced at her. "Well, I don't need it again, not for a while." "What happened?" "I wanted to." He still wanted to, he realized with horror. He wanted to go back into the void, wanted to feel that light filling him again. It had seemed as if he were truly alive then, sickliness and all, and now was only an imitation. No, worse. He had been almost alive, knowing what alive would be like. All he had to do was reach out to Sidene. "Not again," he muttered. He gazed off at the dead Grom. 5 monstrous shapes lying on the ground, not dangerous anymore. Now he can be on our... A coughing bark, all too familiar, sounded beyond the dead Grom, beyond the next hill, and others answered it. Still more came, from the east, from the west. Rand half raised his bow. "How many arrows do you have left?" Selene demanded. "Can you kill 20 Grom? 30? 100? We must go to the portal stone."
"She is right, Rand,"
Loyal said slowly.
"You do not have any choice now."
Huron was watching Rand anxiously. The Grom called, a score of barks overlapping. "The stone," Rand agreed reluctantly. Angrily, he threw himself back into his saddle, slung the bow on his back. "Lead us to this stone, Selene." With a nod, she turned her mare and heeled it to a trot. Rand and the others followed, they eagerly, he holding back. The barks of Grom pursued them, hundreds it seemed. It sounded as if the Grom were ranged in a semicircle around them, closing in from every direction but the front. Swiftly and surely, Selene led them through the hills. The land rose in the beginning of mountains, slopes steepening so the horses scrambled over washed-out-looking rocky outcrops and the sparse, faded-looking brush that clung to them. The way became harder, the land slanting more and more upward. "We're not going to make it," Rand thought. The 5th time Red slipped and slid backwards in a shower of stone. Loyal threw his quarterstaff aside. It would be of no use against Grom, and it only slowed him. The Ogier had given up riding. He used one hand to haul himself up, and then pulled his tall horse behind him with the other. The hairy fetlocked animal made heavy going, but easier than with Loyal on its back. Rome barked behind them, closer now. Then Celine drew rein and pointed to a hollow nestled below them in the granite. It was all there, the 7 wide colored stairs around a pale floor, and the tall stone column in the middle. She dismounted and led her mare into the hollow, down the stairs to the column. It loomed over her. She turned to look back up at Rand and the others. The Grom gave their grunting barks, scores of them, loud, near.
Right.
They will be on us soon, she said. You must use the stone, Rand, or else find a way to kill all the Grom. With a sigh, Rand got down from his saddle and led Red into the hollow. Loyal
I
and
don't
Huron
know
followed
why they
hastily.
gotta pick on
He stared at
stoners.
the symbol-covered column, the portal stone, uneasily. She must be able to channel, even if she doesn't know it, or it couldn't have brought her here.
Route
Power
2.
doesn't harm women. If this brought you here, he began, but she interrupted him. I know what it is, she said firmly, but I do not know how to use it. You must do what must be done. She traced one symbol, a little larger than the others, with a finger. A triangle standing on its point inside a circle. This stands for the true world, our world. I believe it will help if you hold it in your mind while you... She spread her hands, as if unsure exactly what it was he was supposed to do. My lord, Huron said diffidently. There isn't much time. He glanced over his shoulder at the rim of the hollow. The barking was louder. Those things will be here in minutes now. Loyal nodded. Drawing a deep breath, Rand put his hand on the symbol Celine had pointed out. He looked at her to see if he was doing it right, but she merely watched, not even the slightest frown of worry wrinkling her pale forehead. She's confident you can save her. You have to. The scent of her filled his nostrils. My lord. Rand swallowed and sought the boy. It came easily, springing up around him without effort. Emptiness. Emptiness except for the light, wavering in a way that turned his stomach. Emptiness except for Saidin. But even the queasiness was distant. He was one with the portal stone. The column felt smooth and slightly oily under his hand. The triangle and circle seemed warm against the brand on his palm. Have to get them to safety. Have to get them home. The light drifted toward him, it seemed, surrounded him, and he embraced it. Light filled him.
That's what it helps.
He could see the stone, see the others watching.
That's what I use it for.
Anxiously, Celine showing no doubt
all my pain and for my PTSD, anxiety.
The light was all. The heat and the light suffusing his limbs like water sinking into dry sand, filling him. The symbol burned against his flesh. He tried to suck it all in, all the heat, all the light, all. The symbol. Suddenly, as if the sun had gone out for a blink of an eye, the world flickered. And again. The symbol was a live coal under his hand. He drank in the light. The world flickered, flickered. It made him sick, that light. It was water to a man dying of thirst. Flicker. He sucked at it. It made him want to vomit. He wanted it all. Flicker. The triangle and circle seared him. He could feel it charring his hand. Flicker. He wanted it all. He screamed, howling with pain, howling with wanting. Flicker, 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 flicker. Hands pulled at him. He was only vaguely aware of them. He staggered back. The void was slipping away. The light and the sickness that twisted at him. The light. He watched it go regretfully. Light. That's crazy to want it. But I was so full of it. I was so... Dazed, he stared at Celine. It was she who held his shoulders, stared wonderingly into his eyes. He raised his hand in front of his face. The Heron brand was there, but nothing else. No triangle and circle burned into his flesh. Remarkable, Celine said slowly. She glanced at Loyal and Huron. The Ogier looked stunned, his eyes as big as plates. The sniffer was squatting with one hand on the ground, as if unsure he could support himself else. All of us here, and all of our horses. And you do not even know what you did. Remarkable. Are we? Rand began hoarsely, and had to stop to swallow. Look around you, Celine said. You've brought us home. She gave a sudden laugh. You brought all of us home. For the first time, Rand became aware of his surroundings again. The hollow surrounded them without any stairs, though here and there lay a suspiciously smooth piece of stone, colored red or blue. The column lay against the mountainside, half buried in the loose rock of a fall. The symbols were unclear here. Wind and water had worked long on them, and everything looked real. The colors were solid, the granite a strong gray, the brush green and brown. After that other place, it seemed almost too vivid. Home, Rand breathed, and then he was laughing too. We're home. Loyal's laughter sounded like a bull bellowing. Buren danced a caper. You did it, Celine said, leaning closer until her face filled Rand's eyes. I knew that you could. Rand's laughter died. I suppose I did. He glanced at the fallen portal stone and managed a weak laugh. I wish I knew what it was I did, though. Celine looked deep into his eyes. Perhaps one day you will know, she said softly. You are surely destined for great things. Her eyes seemed as dark and deep as night, as soft as velvet. Her mouth? If I kissed her. He blinked and stepped back hurriedly, clearing his throat. Celine, please don't tell anyone about this. About the portal stone and me. I don't understand it, and neither will anybody else. You know how people are about things they don't understand. Her face wore no expression at all. Suddenly, he wished very much that Matt and Perrin were there. Perrin knew how to talk to girls, and Matt could lie with a straight face. He could manage neither very well. Suddenly, Celine smiled and dropped a half-mocking curtsy. I will keep your secret, my Lord Randall Thor. Rand glanced at her and cleared his throat again. Is she angry with me? She'd certainly be angry if I had tried to kiss her, I think. He wished she would not look at him as she was, as if she knew what he was thinking. Buren, is there any chance the Dark Friends used this stone before us? The sniffer shook his head ruefully. They were angling to the west of here, Lord Rand. Unless these portal stone things are more common than I've seen. I'd say they're still in that other world. But it wouldn't take me an hour to check it. The land's the same here as there. I could find a place here where I lost the trail there, if you see what I mean, and see if they've already gone by. Rand glanced at the sky. The sun, a wonderfully strong sun, not pale at all, sat low in the west, stretching their shadows out across the hollow. Another hour would bring full twilight. In the morning, he said. But I fear we've lost them. We can't lose that dagger. We can't. Celine, if that's the case, in the morning we will take you on to your home. Is it in the city of Kyrian itself, or... You may not have lost the Horn of Valir yet, Celine said slowly. As you know, I do know a few things about those worlds. Mirrors of the wheel, Loyal said. She gave him a look, then nodded. Yes, exactly. Those worlds truly are mirrors in a way, especially the ones where there are no people. Some of them reflect only great events in the true world, but some have a shadow of that reflection even before the event occurs. The passage of the Horn of Valir would certainly be a great event. Reflections of what will be are fainter than reflections of what is or what was, just as Huron says the trail he followed was faint. Huron blinked incredulously. You mean to say, milady, I've been smelling where those Dark Friends are going to be? The light help me, I wouldn't like that. It's bad enough smelling where violence has been, without smelling where it will be, too. There can't be many spots where there won't be some kind of violence sometime. It would drive me crazy like as not. That place we just left nearly did. I could smell it all the time there. Killing and hurting, and the vilest evil you could think of. I could even smell it on us. On all of us. Even on you, my lady, if you'll forgive me for saying so. It was just that place, twisting me the way it twisted your eye. He gave himself a shake. I'm glad we're out of there. I can't get it out of my nostrils yet all the way. Rand rubbed absently at the brand on his palm. What do you think, Loyal? Could we really be ahead of Thane's dark friends? The Ogier shrugged, frowning.
I don't know, Rand. I don't know anything about any of this. I think we are back in our world. I think we are in Kinslayer's dagger. Beyond that,
he shrugged again. We should be seeing you home, Selene, Rand said. Your people will be worried about you. A few days will see if I'm right, she said impatiently. Huron can find where he left the trail. He said so. We can watch over it. The Horn of Valier cannot be much longer reaching here. The Horn of Valier, Rand. Think of it. The man who sounds the horn will live in legend forever. I don't want anything to do with legends, he said sharply.
Round 2,
But if the Dark Friends get by you, what if Ingtar lost them? Then the Dark Friends have the Horn of Valier forever, and Matt dies. All right. A few days. At the worst, we'll probably meet Ingtar and the others. I can't imagine they've stopped to turn back just because we went away. A wise decision, Rand, Selene said, and well thought out. She touched his arm and smiled, and he found himself again thinking of kissing her. We need to be closer to where they'll come, if they do come. Huron, can you find us a camp before dark? Somewhere we can watch the place where you lost the trail? He glanced at the portal stone and thought about sleeping near it. Thought of the way the void had crept up on him in sleep the last time, and the light in the void. Somewhere well away from here. Leave it in my hands, Lord Rand. The sniffer scrambled to his saddle. I vow, I'll never sleep again without first I see what kind of stone there is nearby. As Rand rode Red up out of the hollow, he found himself watching Selene more than he did Huron. She seemed so cool and self-possessed. No older than he, yet queenly. But when she smiled at him, as she did just then, Egwene wouldn't have said I was wise. Egwene would have called me a woolhead. Irritably, he healed Red's flanks.
Yeah.
Chapter 18. To the White Tower. Egwene balanced on the healing deck as the River Queen sped down the wide Aranon under cloud-dark skies, sails full-bellied, white flame banner whipping furiously at the mainmast. The wind had risen as soon as the last of them was aboard the ships, back in Meadow, and it had not failed or flagged for an instant since, day or night. The river had begun to race in flood, as it still did, slapping the ships about while it drove them onward. Wind and river had not slowed, and neither had the ships, all clustered together. The River Queen led, only right, for the vessel that carried the Amerlin seat. The helmsman held his tiller grimly, feet planted and spread, and sailors padded barefoot at their work, intent on what they did. When they glanced at the sky or the river, they tore their eyes away with low mutters. A village was just fading from view behind, and a boy raced along the bank. He had kept up with the ships for a short distance, but now they were leaving him behind. When he vanished, Egwene made her way below. In the small cabin they shared, Nynaeve glared up at her from the narrow bed. They say we'll reach Tar Valon today. The light helped me, but I'll be glad to put foot on land again, even if it isn't Tar Valon. The ship lurched with wind and current, and Nynaeve swallowed. I'll never step on a boat again, she said breathlessly. Egwene shook the river spray out of her cloak and hung it on a peg by the door. It was not a big cabin. There were no big cabins on the ship, it seemed, not even the one the Amerlin had taken over from the captain, though that was larger than the rest. With its 2 beds built into the walls, shelves beneath them and cabinets above, everything lay close to hand. Except for keeping her balance, The movements of the ship did not bother her the way they did Nynaeve. She had given up offering Nynaeve food after the third time the wisdom threw the bowl at her. "I'm worried about Rand," she said. "I'm worried about all of them," Nynaeve replied dully. After a moment, she said, "Another dream last night? The way you've been staring at nothing since you got up." Egwene nodded. She had never been very good at keeping things from Nynaeve, and she had not tried with the dreams. Nynaeve had tried to dose her at first until she heard one of the Aes Sedai was interested. Then she began to believe. It was like the others, different but the same. Rand is in some kind of danger, I know it, and it is getting worse. He's done something or he's going to do something that puts him in... She dropped down on her bed and leaned toward the other woman. "I just wish I could make some sense of it." "Channeling," Nynaeve said softly. Despite herself, Egwene looked around to see if anyone was there to hear. They were alone, with the door closed, but still she spoke just as softly. "I don't know. Maybe." There was no telling what Aes Sedai could do. She had seen enough already to make her believe every story of their powers, and she would not risk eavesdropping. "I won't risk Rand. If I did right, I'd tell them. But Moiraine knows, and she hasn't said anything. And it's Rand. I can't. I don't know what to do." "Has Anaya said anything more about these dreams?" Nynaeve seemed to make it a point never to add the honorific Sedai, even when the two of them were alone. Most of the Aes Sedai appeared not to care, but the habit had earned a few strange looks, and some hard ones. She was going to train in the White Tower, after all. "The wheel weaves as the wheel wills," Egwene quoted Anaya. "The boy is far away, child, and there's nothing we can do until we know more. I will see to testing you myself once we reach the White Tower, child." "Ah! She knows there is something in these dreams. I can tell she does. I like the woman, Nynaeve. I do. But she won't tell me what I want to know. And I can't tell her everything. Maybe if I could..." The man in the mask again? Egwene nodded. Somehow she was sure it was better not to tell Anaya about him. She could not imagine why, but she was sure. 3 times the man whose eyes were afire had been in her dreams, each time when she dreamed a dream that convinced her Rand was in danger. He always wore a mask across his face. Sometimes she could see his eyes, and sometimes she could only see fire where they should be. He laughed at me. It was so contemptuous, as though I were a puppy he was going to have to push out of his way with his foot. It frightens me. He frightens me. Are you sure it has anything to do with the other dreams, with Rand? Sometimes a dream is just a dream. Egwene threw up her hands. And sometimes, Nynaeve, you sound just like Anaya Sedai. She put a special emphasis on the title, and was pleased to see Nynaeve grimace. If I ever get out of this bed, Egwene. A knock at the door cut off whatever Nynaeve had been going to say. Before Egwene could speak or move, the Amerlin herself came in and shut the door behind her. She was alone, for a wonder. She seldom left her cabin, and then always with Lyanna at her side, and maybe another of the Aes Sedai. Egwene sprang to her feet. The room was a little crowded, with 3 of them in it. "Both of you feeling well?" the Amerlin said cheerily. She tilted her head at Nynaeve. "Eating well, too, I trust? In good temper?" Nynaeve struggled to a sitting position with her back against the wall. "My temper is just fine, thank you." "We are honored, Mother," Egwene began, but the Amerlin waved her to silence. "It's good to be on the water again, but it grows boring as a mill pond after a while with nothing to do." The ship heeled, and she shifted her balance without seeming to notice. "I will give you your lesson today." She folded herself onto the end of Egwene's bed, feet tucked under her. "Sit, child." Egwene sat, but Nynaeve began trying to push herself to her feet. "I think I will go on deck." "I said sit!" The Amerlin's voice cracked like a whip, but Nynaeve kept rising, wavering. She still had both hands on the bed, but she was almost upright. Egwene held herself ready to catch her when she fell. Closing her eyes, Nynaeve slowly lowered herself back to the bed. Perhaps I will stay. It is no doubt windy up there. The Amerlin barked a laugh. They told me you had a temper in you like a fisher bird with a bone in its throat. Some of them, child, say you do well for some time as a novice, no matter how old you are. I say, if you have the ability I hear of, you deserve to be one of the accepted. She gave another laugh. I always believe in giving people what they deserve. Yes, I suspect you will learn a great deal once you reach the White Tower. I'd rather one of the warders taught me how to use a sword, Nynaeve growled. She swallowed convulsively and opened her eyes. There is someone I'd like to use it on. Egwene looked at her sharply. Did Nynaeve mean the Amerlin, which was stupid and dangerous besides, or Lan? She snapped at Egwene every time Lan was mentioned. A sword, the Amerlin said. I never thought swords were much use, even if you have the skill, child. There are always men who have as much and a deal more strength. But if you want a sword... She held up her hand. Egwene gasped, and even Nynaeve's eyes bulged, and there was a sword in it. With blade and hilt of an odd bluish white, it looked somehow cold. Made from air, child, with air. It's as good as most steel blades, better than most, but still not much use. The sword became a paring knife. There was no shrinking. It just was one thing, then the other. This now is useful. The paring knife turned to mist, and the mist faded away. The other woman put her empty hand back in her lap. But either takes more effort than it is worth. Better, easier, simply, to carry a good knife with you. You have to learn when to use your ability as well as how, and when it's better to do things the way any other woman would. Let a blacksmith make knives for cutting fish. Use the one power too often and too freely, and you can come to like it too much. That way lies danger. You begin to want more of it, and sooner or later you run the risk of drawing more than you've learned to handle. And that can burn you out like a guttered candle, or... If I must learn all this, Nynaeve broke in stiffly, I would as soon learn something useful. All this... Make the air stir, Nynaeve. Light the candle, Nynaeve. Now put it out. Light it again. Ha! Egwene closed her eyes for a moment. Please, Nynaeve. Please keep a check on your temper. She bit her lip to keep from saying it out loud. The Amerlin was silent for a moment. Useful, she said at last. Something useful. You wanted a sword. Suppose a man came at me with a sword. What would I do? Something useful, you can be sure. This, I think. For an instant, Egwene thought she saw a glow around the woman at the other end of her bed. Then the air seemed to thicken. Nothing changed that Egwene could see, but she could surely feel it. She tried to lift her arm. It did not budge any more than if she were buried to her neck in thick lemon. Nothing could move except her head. Release me, Nynaeve made. Her eyes glared and her head jerked from side to side, but the rest of her sat rigidly as a statue. Egwene realized that she was not the only one held. Let me go! Useful, wouldn't you say? And it is nothing but air. The Amerlin spoke in a conversational tone as if they were all chatting over tea. Big man with his muscles and his sword, and the sword does him as much good as the hair on his chest. Let me go, I say! And if I don't like where he is, why, I can pick him up. Nynaeve squawked furiously as she slowly rose, still in a sitting position, until her head almost touched the ceiling. The Amerlin smiled. I've often wished I could use this to fly. The records say Aes Sedai could fly in the Age of Legends, but they aren't clear on how exactly.
No.
Not this way, though. It doesn't work like that. You might reach out with your hands and pick up a chest that weighs as much as you do. You look strong. But take hold of yourself however you will, you cannot pick yourself up. Nynaeve's head jerked furiously, but not another muscle of her twitched. The light burn you, let me go! Egwene swallowed hard, and hoped she was not also to be lifted. So, the Amerlin continued, big, hairy man and so forth. He can do nothing to me, while I can do anything at all to him. Why, if I had a mind to. She leaned forward, her eyes intent on Nynaeve. Suddenly her smile did not seem very friendly. I could turn him upside down and paddle his bottom, just like... Suddenly the Amelin flew backwards so hard, her head rebounded from the wall, and there she stayed, as if something were pressing against her. Egwene stared, her mouth dry. This isn't happening. It isn't. They were right, the Amerlin said. Her voice sounded strained, as though she found it hard to breathe. They said you learned quickly, and they said it took your temper burning to get to the heart of what you can do. She took a struggling breath. Shall we release each other together, child? Nynaeve, floating in the air with her eyes ablaze, said, You let me go right now or I'll... Abruptly, a look of amazement came over her face, a look of loss. Her mouth worked silently. The Amerlin sat up, working her shoulders. You don't know everything yet, do you, child? Not the 100th part of everything. You did not suspect I could cut you off from the true source. You can still feel it there, but you can't touch it any more than a fish can touch the moon. When you learn enough to be raised to full sisterhood, no one woman will be able to do that to you. The stronger you become, the more Aes Sedai will take to shield you against your will. Do you think now you want to learn? Nynaeve pressed her mouth shut in a thin line and stared her in the eye grimly. The Amerlin sighed. If you had a hair less potential than you do, child, I would send you to the Mistress of Novices and tell her to keep you the rest of your life. But you will get what you deserve. Nynaeve's eyes widened, and she had just time to start a yell before she dropped, hitting her bed with a loud thud. Egwene winced. The mattresses were thin and the wood beneath hard. Nynaeve's face stayed frozen as she shifted the way she sat, just a fraction. And now, the Amerlin said firmly, unless you would like further demonstration, we will get on with your lesson. Continue your lesson, we might say. Mother, Egwene said faintly. She still could not twitch below her chin. The Amerlin looked at her questioningly, then smiled. Oh, I am sorry, child. Your friend was occupying my attention, I'm afraid. Suddenly, Egwene could move again. She raised her arms just to convince herself that she could. Are you both ready to learn? Yes, Mother, Egwene said quickly. The Amerlin raised an eyebrow at Nynaeve. After a moment, Nynaeve said in a tight voice, Yes, Mother. Egwene heaved a sigh of relief. Good. Now then, empty your thoughts of everything but a flower bud. Egwene was sweating by the time the Amerlin left. She had thought that some of the other Aes Sedai had been hard teachers, but that smiling, plain-faced woman coaxed out every last drop of effort, drew it out, and when there was nothing left, she seemed to reach into you and pulled it out. It had gone well, though. As the door closed behind the Amerlin, Egwene raised one hand. A tiny flame sprang to life, balanced a hairbreadth above the tip of her forefinger, then danced from fingertip to fingertip. She was not supposed to do this without a teacher, and to be accepted at the very least, to watch over her, but she was too excited at her progress to pay any mind to that. Nynaeve bounded to her feet and threw her pillow at the closing door. That vile, contemptible, miserable hag! The light burn her! I'd like to feed her to the fish. I'd like to dose her with things that would turn her green for the rest of her life. I don't care if she's old enough to be my mother. If I had her in Emmons Field, she wouldn't sit down comfortably for... Her teeth ground so loudly that Egwene jumped. Letting the flame die, Egwene put her eyes firmly on the map. She wished she could think of a way to sneak out of the room without catching Nynaeve's eye. The lesson had not gone well for Nynaeve, because she had held her temper on a tight lead until the Amerlin was gone.
Wedding cake.
She never could do very much unless she was angry, and then it all burst out of her. After failure upon failure, the Amerlin had done everything she could to rouse her again. Egwene wished Nynaeve could forget she had been there to see or hear any of it. Nynaeve stalked stiffly to her bed and stood staring at the wall behind it, her fist clenched at her side. Egwene looked longingly at the door. "It was not your fault," Nynaeve said, and Egwene gave a start. Nynaeve turned to look down at her. "It was not your fault," she repeated, sounding unconvinced. "But if you ever breathe one word, I'll..." "No word," Egwene said quickly. "I don't even remember anything to breathe a word about." Nynaeve stared at her a moment longer, then nodded. Abruptly, she grimaced. "Right. I did not think anything tasted worse than raw sheep's tongue root. I'll remember that the next time you act the goose, so watch yourself." Egwene winced. That had been the first thing the Amerlin had done trying to rouse Nynaeve's anger. A blunt blob of something that glistened like teeth and smelled vile had appeared, and while the Amerlin held Nynaeve with the power, had been forced into the wisdom's mouth. The Amerlin had even held her nose to make her swallow. And Nynaeve remembered things, if she had seen them done once. Egwene did not think there was any way of stopping her if she took it into her mind to do it. For all her own success in making a flame dance, she could never have held the Amerlin against a wall. "At least being on the ship isn't making you sick anymore." Nynaeve grunted, then gave a short, sharp laugh. "I'm too angry to be sick." With another mirthless laugh, she shook her head. "I'm too miserable to be sick. Light, I feel as if I've been dragged through a knothole backwards. That is what novice training is like for having attempted to learn quickly." Egwene scowled at her knees. Compared to Nynaeve, the Amerlin had only coaxed her, smiled at her successes, sympathized with her failures, then coaxed again. But all the Aes Sedai had said things would be different in the White Tower. Harder, though they would not say how. If she had to go through what Nynaeve had day after day, she did not think she could stand it. Something changed in the motion of the ship. The rocking eased, and feet thumped on the deck above their heads. A man shouted something Egwene could not quite make out. She looked up at Nynaeve. "Do you think Tar Valon?" "There is only one way to find out," Nynaeve replied, and determinedly took her cloak from its peg. When they reached the deck, sailors were running everywhere, heaving at lines, shortening sail, readying long sweeps. The wind had died to a breeze, and the clouds were scattering now. Egwene rushed to the rail. It is Tar Valon!" Nynaeve joined her with an expressionless face. The island was so big, it looked more as if the river split in two than contained a bit of land. Bridges that seemed to be made of lace arched from either bank to the island, crossing marshy ground as well as the river. The walls of the city, the shining walls of Tar Valon, glistened white as the sun broke through the clouds. And on the west bank, its broken top leaking a thin wisp of smoke, Dragonmount reared black against the sky, one mountain standing among flatlands and rolling hills. Dragonmount, where the dragon had died. Dragonmount, made by the dragon's dying. Egwene wished she did not think of Rand when she looked at the mountain. A man channeling. Light help him. The River Queen passed through a wide opening in a tall circular wall that thrust out into the river. Inside, one long wharf surrounded a round harbor. Sailors furled the last sails and used sweeps alone to move the ship's stern first to its docking. Around the long wharf, the other ships that had come downriver were now being snugged into their berths among the ships already there. The white flame banners set workers scurrying along the already busy wharf. The Amerlin came on deck before the shorelines were tied off, but dock workers ran a gangplank aboard as soon as she appeared. Lyanna walked at her side, flame-tipped staff in hand, and the other Aes Sedai on the ship followed them ashore. None of them so much as glanced at Egwene or Nynaeve. On the wharf, a delegation greeted the Amerlin, shawled Aes Sedai bowing formally, kissing the Amerlin's ring. The wharf bustled, between ships unloading and the Amerlin's seat arriving. Soldiers formed up on disembarking, men set booms for cargo. Trumpet flourishes rang from the walls, competing with cheers from the onlookers. Nynaeve gave a loud sniff. It seems they've forgotten us. Come along, we'll see to ourselves. Egwene was reluctant to leave her first sight of Tar Valon, but she followed Nynaeve below to gather their things. When they came back topside, bundles in their arms, soldiers and trumpets were gone, and Aes Sedai too. Men were swinging back hatches along the deck and lowering cables into the holds. On the deck, Nynaeve caught a dockman's arm, a burly fellow in a coarse brown shirt with no sleeves. "Our horses," she began. "I'm busy," he growled, pulling free. "Horses'll all be took to the White Tower." He looked them up and down. "If you've business with the tower, best you take yourselves on. I said I don't hold with newlings being tardy." Another man, wrestling with a bale being swung out of the hold on a cable, shouted to him, and he left the women without a backwards glance. Egwene exchanged looks with Nynaeve. It seemed they really were on their own. Nynaeve stalked off the ship with grim determination on her face, but Egwene made her way dejectedly down the gangplank and through the tarry smell that hung over the wharf. All that talk about wanting us here, and now they don't seem to care. Broad stairs led up from the dock to a wide arch of dark redstone. On reaching it, Egwene and Nynaeve stopped to stare. Every building seemed a palace, though most of those close to the arch seemed to contain inns or shops from the signs over the doors. Fanciful stonework was everywhere, and the lines of one structure seemed designed to complement and set off the next, leading the eye along as if everything were part of one vast design. Some structures did not look like buildings at all, but like gigantic waves breaking, or huge shells, or fanciful wind-sculpted cliffs. Right in front of the arch lay a broad square, with a fountain and trees, and Egwene could see another square further on. Above everything rose the towers, tall and graceful, some with sweeping bridges behind them, high in the sky. And over all rose one tower, higher and wider than all the rest, as white as the shining walls themselves. "There takes the breath at first sight," said a woman's voice behind them. "At 10th sight for that, and at 100th. Egwene turned. The woman was Aes Sedai. Egwene was sure of it, though she wore no shawl. No one else had that ageless look, and she held herself with an assurance, a confidence that seemed to confirm it. A glance at her hand showed the golden ring, the serpent biting its own tail. The Aes Sedai was a little plump, with a warm smile, and one of the oddest-appearing women Egwene had ever seen. Her plumpness could not hide high cheekbones. Her eyes had a tilt to them, and were the clearest, palest green, and her hair was almost the color of fire. Egwene barely stopped herself from goggling at that hair, those slightly slanted eyes. "Ogier built, of course," the Aes Sedai went on. "And their best work ever, some say. One of the first cities built after the breaking. There weren't 500,000 people here altogether then, no more than 20 sisters, but they built for what would be needed." "It is a lovely city," Nynaeve said. "We are supposed to go to the White Tower. We came here for training, but no one seems to care if we go or stay." "They care," the woman said, smiling. "I came here to meet you, but I was delayed speaking with the Amyrlin. I am Shiriam, the mistress of novices." "I am not to be a novice," Nynaeve said in a firm voice, but a little too quickly. "The Amyrlin herself said I was to be one of the accepted." "So I was told." Shiriam sounded amused. "I have never heard of it being done so before, but they say you are exceptional. Remember, though, even one of the accepted can be called to my study. It requires more breaking of the rules than for a novice, but it has been known to happen." She turned to Egwene as if she had not seen Nynaeve frown. "And you are our new novice. It is always good to see a novice come. We have too few these days. You will make 40. Only 40. And no more than 8 or 9 of those will be raised to the accepted. Though I don't think you will have to worry about that too much, if you work hard and apply yourself. The work is hard, and even for one with the potential they tell me you have, it will not be made any easier. If you cannot stick to it, no matter how hard it is, or if you will break under the strain, Better we find it out now and let you go on your way, than wait until you are a full sister and others are depending on you. An Aes Sedai's life is not easy. Here we will prepare you for it, if you have in you what is required. Egwene swallowed. Break under the strain? I will try, Shiriam Sedai, she said faintly, and I will not break. Nynaeve looked at her worriedly. Shiriam, she stopped and took a deep breath. Shiriam Sedai, she seemed to force the honorific out. Does it have to be so hard on her? Flesh and blood can only take so much. I know something of what novices must go through. Surely there's no need to try to break her just to find out how strong she is. You mean what the Amerlin did to you today? Nynaeve's back stiffened. Shiriam looked as though she were trying to keep amusement from her face. I told you I spoke with the Amerlin. Rest your worries for your friend. Novice training is hard, but not that hard. That is for the first few weeks of being one of the accepted. Nynaeve's mouth fell open. Egwene thought the wisdom's eyes were going to come right out of her head. To catch the few who might have slipped through novice training when they should not have. We cannot risk having one of our number, a full Aes Sedai, who will break under the stress of the world outside. The Aes Sedai gathered them both up, an arm around the shoulders of each. Nynaeve hardly seemed to realize where she was going. Come, Shiriam said. I will see you settled in your rooms. The White Tower awaits.
Chapter 19. Beneath the Dagger. Night on the edge of Kinslayer's Dagger was cold, as nights in the mountains are always cold. The wind whipped down from the high peaks, carrying the iciness of the snowcaps. Bran shifted on the hard ground, tugging at his cloak and blanket, and only half asleep. His hand went to his sword, lying beside him. One more day, he thought drowsily. Just one more, and then we go. If no one comes tomorrow, Ingtar or Dark Friends 1, I'll take Selene to Kyria. He had told himself that before. Every day they had been there on the mountainside, watching the place where Huron said the trail had been, in that other world, where Selene said the Dark Friends would surely appear in this world. He told himself it was time to leave. And Selene talked of the Honavelir and touched his arm and looked into his eyes, and before he knew it, he had agreed to yet another day before they went on. He shrugged against the chill of the wind, thinking of Selene touching his arm and looking into his eyes. If Egwene saw that, she'd shear me for a sheep, and Selene too. Egwene could already be in Tarvalin by now, learning to be an Aes Sedai. The next time she sees me, she'll probably try to gentle me. As he shifted over, his hand slid past the sword and touched the bundle holding Tom Maryland's harp and flute. Unconsciously, his fingers tightened on the Gleeman's cloak. I was happy then, I think, even running for my life, playing the flute for my supper. I was too ignorant to know what was going on. There's no turning back. Shivering, he opened his eyes. The only light came from the waning moon, not far past full and low in the sky. A fire would give them away to those for whom they watched. Loyal muttered in his sleep, a low rumble. One of the horses stamped a hoof. Huron had the first watch from a stone outcrop a little way up the mountain. He would be coming to wake Rand for his turn soon. Rand rolled over and stopped. In the moonlight, he could see the shape of Selene bending over his saddlebags, her hands on the buckles. Her white dress gathered the faint light. Do you need something? She gave a jump and stared toward him. You startled me. He rolled to his feet, shedding the blanket and wrapping the cloak around himself, and went to her. He was sure he had left the saddlebags right by his side when he lay down. He always kept them close. He took them from her. All the buckles were fastened, even those on the side that held the damning banner. How can my life depend on keeping it? If anybody sees it and knows what it is, I'll die for having it. He peered at her suspiciously. Selene stayed where she was, looking up at him. The moon glistened in her dark eyes. It came to me, she said, that I've been wearing this dress too long. I could brush it at least, if I had something else to wear while I did. One of your shirts, perhaps. Rand nodded, feeling a sudden relief. Her dress looked as clean to him as when he first saw her, but he knew that if a spot appeared on Egwene's dress, nothing would do but that she cleaned it immediately. Of course. He opened the capacious pocket into which he had stuffed everything except the banner and pulled out one of the white silk shirts. Thank you. Her hands went behind her back. To the buttons, he realized. Eyes wide, he spun away from her. If you could help me with these, it would be much easier. Rand cleared his throat. It would not be proper. It isn't as if we were promised or... Stop thinking that. You can never marry anyone. It just wouldn't be proper. Her soft laugh sent a shiver down his back as if she had run a finger along his spine. He tried not to listen to the rustlings behind him. He said, Tomorrow we'll leave for Kyrian. And what of the Horn of Valir? Maybe we were wrong. Maybe they are not coming here at all. Huron says there are a number of passes through Kinslayer's dagger. If they went only a little further west, they do not have to come into the mountains at all. But the trail we followed came here. They will come here. The Horn will come here. You may turn around now. You say that, but we don't know. He turned, and the words died in his mouth. Her dress lay across her arm, and she wore his shirt, hanging in baggy folds on her. It was a long-tailed shirt, made for his height, but she was tall for a woman. The bottom of it came little more than halfway down her thighs. It was not as if he had never seen a girl's legs before. Girls in the Two Rivers always tied up their skirts to go wading in Waterwood ponds. But they stopped doing it well before they were old enough to braid their hair. And this was in the dark, besides. The moonlight seemed to make her skin glow. What is it you don't know, Rand? The sound of her voice unfroze his joints. With a loud cough, he whirled to face the other way. I think, think of the glory, Rand. Her hand touched his back, and he almost shamed himself with a squeak. Think of the glory that will come to the one who finds the Horn of Valir. How proud I'll be to stand beside him who holds the horn. You have no idea the heights we will scale together, you and I. With the Horn of Valir in your hand, you can be a king. You can be another Arthur Hawkwing. Lord Rand! Huron panted into the campsite. My lord, they... He skidded to a halt, suddenly making a gurgling sound. His eyes dropped to the ground, and he stood wringing his hands. Forgive me, milady. I didn't mean to... Forgive me. Loyal sat up, his blanket and cloak falling away.
What's happening? Is it my turn to watch already?
He looked toward Rand and Celine, and even in the moonlight, the widening of his eyes was plain. Rand heard Celine sigh behind him. He stepped away from her, still not looking at her. The legs are so white, so smooth. What is it, Huron? He made his voice more moderate. Was he angry with Huron, himself, or Celine? No reason to be angry with her. Did you see something, Huron? The sniffer spoke without raising his eyes. A fire, my lord, down in the hills. I didn't see it at first. They made it small and hid it. But they hid it from somebody following them, not somebody ahead and up above. 2 miles, Lord Rand. Less than 3 for sure. Vain, Rand said. Ingtar would not be afraid of anyone following him. It must be Fane. Suddenly, he did not know what to do now. They had been waiting for Fane, and now that the man was only a mile or so away, he was uncertain. In the morning we will follow. When Ingtar and the others catch up, we'll be able to point right to them. So, Celine said, you will let this Ingtar take the Horn of Valir and the glory. I don't want... Without thinking, he turned, and there she was, legs pale in the moonlight, and as unconcerned that they were bare as if she were alone. As if we were alone, the thought came. She wants the man who finds the horn. 3 of us cannot take it away from them. Ingtar has 20 lances with him. You don't know you cannot take it. How many followers does this man have? You don't know that either. Her voice was calm but intent. You don't even know if these men camped down there do have the horn. The only way is to go down yourself and see. Take the Atlantan. His kind have sharp eyes, even by moonlight. And he has the strength to carry the horn in his chest, if you make the right decision. She's right. You do not know for sure if it's Fane. A fine thing it would be to have Huron casting about for a trail that was not there, all of them out in the open if the real Dark Friends did finally come. I will go alone, he said. Huron and Loyal will stand guard for you. Laughing, Celine came to him so gracefully it almost seemed she danced. Moon shadows veiled her face in mystery as she looked up at him, and mystery made her even more beautiful. I am capable of guarding myself, until you return to protect me. Take the Atlantan.
She is right, Rand,
Loyal said, rising.
I can see better by moonlight than you. With my eyes, we may not need to go as close as you would alone.
Very well. Rand strode over to his sword and buckled it at his waist. Bow and quiver he left where they lay. A bow was not of much use in the dark, and he intended to look, not fight. Huron, show me this fire. The sniffer led him scrambling up the slope to the outcrop, like a huge stone thumb thrust out of the mountain. The fire was only a speck. He missed it the first time Huron pointed. Whoever had made it did not mean for it to be seen. He fixed it in his head. By the time they returned to the camp, Loyal had saddled Red and his own horse. As Rand climbed to the bay's back, Celine caught his hand. Remember the glory, she said softly. Remember. The shirt seemed to fit her better than he recalled, molding itself to her form. He drew a deep breath and took his hand back. Guard her with your life, Huron. Loyal? He heeled Red's flanks gently. The Ogier's big mount plodded along behind. They did not try to move quickly. Night shrouded the mountainside, and moon-cast shadows made footing uncertain. Rand could not see the fire any longer. No doubt it was better hidden from eyes on the same level. But he had its location in his mind. For someone who had learned to hunt in the tangle of the Westwood, in the 2 rivers, finding the fire would be no great difficulty. And what then? Celine's face loomed before him. How proud I'll be to stand beside him who holds the horn. Loyal, he said suddenly, trying to clear his thoughts. What's this? A lantern, she calls you.
It's the old tongue, Rand.
The Ogier's horse picked its way uncertainly, but he guided it almost as surely as if it were daylight.
It means brother, and is short for Tir Arende Alantin. Brother to the trees. Tree brother. It is very formal, but then I've heard the Carianan are formal. The noble houses are, at least. The common people I saw there were not very formal at all.
Rand frowned. A shepherd would not be very acceptable to a formal Carianan noble house. Light, Matt's right about you. You're crazy, and with a big head to boot. But if I could marry... He wished he could stop thinking. And before he realized it, the void had formed within him, making thoughts distant things as if part of someone else. Saidin shone at him, beckoned to him. He gritted his teeth and ignored it. It was like ignoring a burning coal inside his head, but at least he could hold it at bay.
Be right back.
He almost left the void, but the Dark Friends were out there in the night, and closer now. And the Trollocs. He needed the emptiness, needed even the uneasy calm of the void. I don't have to touch it. I don't. After a time, he reined in Red. They stood at the base of a hill, the wide scattered trees on its slopes, black in the night. I think we must be close by now, he said softly. Best we go the rest of the way on foot. He slid from the saddle and tied the bay's reins to a branch.
Are you all right?
Loyal whispered, climbing down.
You sound odd.
I'm fine. His voice sounded tight, he realized. Stretched. Saidin called to him. No. Be careful. I can't be sure exactly how far it is. That fire should be somewhere just ahead of us. On the hilltop, I think. The Ogier nodded. Rand slowly stole from tree to tree, placing each foot carefully, holding his sword tight so it did not clatter against a tree trunk. He was grateful for the lack of undergrowth. Loyal followed like a big shadow. Rand could not see much more of him than that. Everything was moon shadows and darkness. Suddenly, some trick of the moonlight resolved the shadows ahead of him, and he froze, touching the rough bole of a leather leaf. Dim mounds on the ground became men wrapped in blankets, and apart from them, a group of larger mounds, sleeping Trollocs. They had doused the fire. One moonbeam, moving through the branches, caught a shine of gold and silver on the ground halfway between the two groups. The moonlight seemed to brighten. For an instant, he could see clearly. The shape of a sleeping man lay close by to the gleam, but that was not what held his eye. The chest, the horn, and something atop it, a point of red flashing in the moonbeam. The dagger. Why would Fane put... Loyal's huge hand settled over Rand's mouth, and a good part of his face besides. He twisted to look at the Ogier. Loyal pointed off to his right slowly, as if motion might attract attention. At first, Rand could not see anything. Then a shadow moved not 10 paces away. A tall, bulky shadow, and snouted. Rand's breath caught. A Trolloc. It lifted its snout as if sniffing. Some of them hunted by scent. For an instant, the void wavered. Someone stirred in the Darkfriend camp, and the Trolloc turned to peer that way. Rand froze, letting the calm of emptiness envelop him. His hand was on his sword, but he did not think of it. The void was all. Whatever happened, happened. He watched the Trolloc without blinking. A moment longer, the snouted shadow watched the Darkfriend camp, then, as if satisfied, folded itself down beside a tree. Almost immediately, a low sound, like coarse cloth ripping, drifted from it. Loyal put his mouth close to Rand's ear. He whispered incredulously. Rand nodded. Tam had told him Trollocs were lazy, apt to give up any task but killing unless fear kept them to it. He turned back to the camp. All was still and quiet there again. The moonbeam no longer shone on the chest, but he knew now which shadow it was. He could see it in his mind, floating beyond the void, glittering, golden, chased with silver, in the glow of Saidin. The horn of Valir and the dagger Mat needed, both almost within reach of his hand. Celine's face drifted with the chest. They could follow Fane's party in the morning and wait until Ingtar joined them. If Ingtar did come, if he still followed the trail without his sniffer. No, there would never be a better chance. All within reach of his hand. Celine was waiting on the mountain. Motioning for Loyal to follow, Rand dropped to his belly and crawled toward the chest. He heard the Ogier's muffled gasp, but his eyes were fixed on that one shadowed mound ahead. Darkfriends and Trollocs lay to left and right of him, but once he had seen Tam stalk close enough to a deer to put his hand on its flank before the animal bounded off. He had tried to learn from Tam. Madness. The thought flew by dimly, almost out of reach. This is madness. You are going mad. Dim thoughts. Someone else's thoughts. Slowly, silently, he slithered to that one special shadow and put out a hand. Ornate traceries worked in gold met his touch. It was the chest that held the horn of Valir. His hand touched something else on the lid. The dagger, bare bladed. In the dark, his eyes widened. Remembering what it had done to Mat, he jerked back, the void shifting with his agitation. The man sleeping nearby, no more than 2 paces from the chest, no one else lay so close by spans, groaned in his sleep and thrashed at his blankets. Rand allowed the void to sweep thought and fear away. Murmuring uneasily in his sleep, the man stilled. Rand let his hand go back to the dagger, not quite touching it. It had not harmed Mat in the beginning. Not much, at least. Not quickly. In one swift motion, he lifted the dagger, stuck it behind his belt, and pulled his hand away, as if it might help to minimize the time it touched his bare skin. Perhaps it would, and Matt would die without the dagger. He could feel it there, almost a weight pulling him down, pressing against him. But in the void, sensation was as distant as thought, and the feel of the dagger faded quickly to something he was used to. He wasted only a moment more staring at the shadow-wrapped chest. The horn had to be inside. But he did not know how to open it, and he could not lift it by himself. Then he looked around for Loyal. He found the Ogier crouched not far behind him, massive head swiveling as he peered back and forth from sleeping human dark friends to sleeping Trollocs. Even in the night, it was plain Loyal's eyes were as wide as they could go. They looked as big as saucers in the light of the moon. Rand reached out and took Loyal's hand. The Ogier gave a start and gasped. Rand put a finger across his lips, set Loyal's hand on the chest, and mind lifting. For a time, it seemed forever in the night, with dark friends and Trollocs all around. It could not have been more than heartbeats. Loyal stared. Then, slowly, he put his arms around the golden chest and stood. He made it seem effortless. Ever so carefully, even more carefully than he had come in, Rand began to walk out of the camp, behind Loyal and the chest. Both hands on his sword, he watched the sleeping dark friends, the still shapes of the Trollocs. All those shadowed figures began to be swallowed deeper in the darkness as they drew away. Almost free. We've done it. The man who had been sleeping near the chest suddenly sat up with a strangled yell, then leaped to his feet. It's gone! Wake, you filth! It's gone! Thane's voice. Even in the void, Rand recognized it. The others scrambled erect, dark friends and Trollocs, calling to know what was happening, growling and snarling. Bane's voice rose to a howl. I know it is you, Althor. You're hiding from me, but I know you're out there. Find him! Find him! Althor! Men and Trollocs scattered in every direction. Wrapped in emptiness, Rand kept moving. Almost forgotten in entering the camp, Saidin pulsed at him.
You cannot see us,
Loyal whispered low.
Once we reach the horses.
A Trolloc leaped out of the dark at them, cruel eagle's beak in a man's face where mouth and nose should have been, scythe-like sword already whistling through the air. Rand moved without thought. He was one with the blade. Cat dances on the wall. The Trolloc screamed as it fell, screamed again as it died. Run, Loyal! Rand commanded. Saidin called to him. Run! He was dimly aware of Loyal lumbering to an awkward gallop, but another Trolloc loomed from the night, boar-snouted and tusked, spiked axe raised. Smoothly, Rand glided between Trolloc and Ogier. Loyal musket the horn away. Head and shoulders taller than Rand, half again as wide, the Trolloc came at him with a silent snarl. The courtier taps his fan. No scream this time. He walked backwards after Loyal, watching the night. Saidin sang to him, such a sweet song. The power could burn them all. Burn Thane and all the rest to cinders. No! Two more Trollocs, wolf and ram, gleaming teeth and curling horns. Blizzard in the thorn bush. He rose smoothly from one knee as the second toppled, horns almost brushing his shoulder. The song of Saidin caressed him with seduction, pulled him with 1,000 silken strings. Burn them all with the power. No, no! Better dead than that. If I were dead, it would be done with. A knot of Trollocs came into sight, hunting uncertainly. 3 of them. 4. Suddenly one of them pointed to Rand and raised a howl. The rest answered as they charged. Let it be done with, Rand shouted, and leaped to meet them. For an instant, surprise slowed them. Then they came on with guttural cries, gleeful, bloodthirsty, swords and maces raised. He danced among them to the song of Saidin. Hummingbird kisses the honey rose. So cunning, that song, filling him. Cat on hot sand. The sword seemed alive in his hands, as it had never been before, and he fought as if a heron-marked blade could keep Saidin from him. The heron spreads its wings. Rand stared at the motionless shapes on the ground around him. Better to be dead, he murmured. He raised his eyes, back up the hill toward where the camp lay. Fane was there, and dark friends and more Trollocs. Too many to fight, too many to face and live. He took a step that way, another.
Rand, come on!
Loyal's urgent whispered call drifted through the emptiness to him.
For life and the light, Rand, come on!
Carefully, Rand bent to wipe his blade on a Trolloc's coat. Then, as formally as if Lan were watching him train, he sheathed it.
Rand!
As though he knew of no urgency, Rand joined Loyal by the horses. The Ogier was tying the golden chest atop his saddle with straps from his saddlebags. His cloak was stuffed underneath to help balance the chest in the rounded saddle seat. Saidin sang no more. It was there, that stomach-turning glow, but it held back as if he truly had fought it off. Wonderingly, he let the void vanish. "I think I'm going mad," he said. Suddenly realizing where they were, he peered back the way they had come. Shouts and howls came from half a dozen different directions, signs of search, but none of pursuit. Yet. He swung up onto Red's back.
Sometimes I do not understand half of what you say,
Loyal said.
If you must go mad, could it at least wait until we are back with the Lady Selene and Huron?
How are you going to ride with that in your saddle?
I will run.
The Ogier suited his words by breaking into a quick trot, pulling his horse behind him by the reins. Rand followed. The pace Loyal set was as fast as a horse could trot. Rand was sure the Ogier could not keep it for long, but Loyal's feet did not flag. Rand decided that his boast of once outrunning a horse might really be true. Now and again, Loyal looked behind them as he ran, but the shouts of dark friends and howls of Trollocs faded with distance. Even when the ground began to slope upwards more sharply, Loyal's pace barely slowed, and he trotted into their campsite on the mountainside with only a little hard breathing. "You have it." Selene's voice was exultant as her gaze rested on the ornately worked chest on Loyal's saddle. She was wearing her own dress again. It looked as white as new snow to Rand. "I knew you would make the right choice. May I have a look at it?" "Did any of them follow, my lord?" Huron asked anxiously. He stared at the chest with awe, but his eyes slid off into the night down the mountain. "If they followed, we'll have to move quick." "I do not think they did. Go to the outcrop and see if you can see anything." Rand climbed down from his saddle as Huron hurried up the mountain. "Selene, I don't know how to open the chest. Loyal, do you?" The Ogier shook his head.
All right, I'm going to call into this live for tonight. I want to thank everyone for stopping by, everyone who keeps stopping by. I appreciate all y'all's support. Until next time, everyone, y'all stay safe.